Chapter 2193. The 69th Yang Meridian moved closer to the last Yang Meridian in the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace, connecting head to tail, forming the Heaven and Earth Tao Palace. He never expected that he would gain another Yang Meridian during the palace entrance test. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord wanted my purple cloud Dharma spirit. I never expected that he would give me such a huge benefit before we even met. Not only did he help me advance, but he also successfully gave birth to a Yang Meridian. When I see him, I have to thank him in person. Su Fong wiped the sweat off his forehead. He was overjoyed, thinking that Heavenly Fire Divine Lord was a good person. He put away the heaven-concealing star flag and saw that the battle for the top 10 was still in full swing. Therefore, he began cultivating the 9 Yang, 9 transformations, fusing with the remaining heavenly fire to recover the Yang energy consumed by the birth of the 69th Yang Meridian. Suddenly, he felt a cold aura surge out of the primordial chaos sacred mirror. Then, Shu Wanjin's voice sounded, "I never expected that you would gain another Yang Meridian so quickly. You are not far from the 8th transformation. Congratulations." Su Fong was about to ask Shu Wanjin about the 9 Yang 9 transformations and the primordial chaos sacred mirror, but he never expected her to appear at this moment. The birth of the 69th Yang Meridian is considered lucky. Su Fong chuckled and then told Shu Wanjin all the doubts in his heart. You are guessing that the primordial chaos sacred mirror was refined by the heavenly Lord of creation using the 9 divine suns that day shot down? Perhaps your guess makes sense. As for whether it is true or not, no one can verify it now, much less me. As for the 9 Yang 9 transformations, I gained enlightenment from the ancient mirror. If it is as you guessed, the 9 Yang 9 transformations is very likely an energy art left behind by the heavenly Lord of creation. Only such a supreme existence could create the 9 Yang 9 transformations. Su Fong was shocked. Shu Wanjin continued, "You are about to enter the Yuan Tiangong. You have to seize this opportunity to improve your strength as soon as possible. I have already cultivated to a normal state. Once the palace entrance test is over, you can help me leave the Advent Divine Palace." Su Fong was pleasantly surprised. It's finally time for Senior Marshal's sister to escape. I will definitely do my best. After ending his conversation with Shu Wanjin, Su Fong continued to recover his Yang energy. At the same time, he was also paying attention to the battle for the top 10. The person he was most concerned about was naturally Xuanxin. As time passed, the battle for the top 10 came to an end. Other than Su Fong, Di Yuan, and Goddess Luo, no one else was able to win 10 matches in a row. After going through a cruel and difficult cycle, many geniuses were unable to continue due to injuries or exhaustion. They were forced to withdraw from the fight for the top 10. In the end, the remaining 7 spots were determined by the number of matches won. Ranked behind Goddess Luo was Chu Bingyan. There was Qi Mian, Xuanxin, Shifeng, Tian Bao, Qinggang, and Geng Zhao. According to their true strength, Xuanxin, Tian Bao, Geng Zhao, and the rest would not be able to enter the top 10. Shun Xingyi, Duan Murenjia, Di Yuang, Luo Xingtian, Il Woyang, and Fan Shu, who had the strength to enter the top 10, were all at a disadvantage in the battle with Su Fong. This caused them to be defeated in the cruel battles later on. Some of them were even unable to continue fighting and had to give up, especially Il Woyang. He was originally in the top 10, but he was severely injured and could not even participate in the later challenges, let alone fight for the top 10. The other geniuses who had failed to enter the top 10 were unwilling to accept this, but they had no choice but to accept it. Some geniuses realized that not only did Su Fong change the top 10, his 2 Dao companions had also entered the top 10. Such a result was truly inconceivable. Su Fong looked at Xuanxin and then at Goddess Luo. He was overjoyed. He did not expect the palace entrance test to have such a perfect result. Goddess Luo appeared unperturbed. It was as though she could calmly accept any outcome. Xuanxin was so excited that she could not calm down for a long time. After entering the top 10, at least the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan would not treat her like a tool like before. The names of the top 10 geniuses appeared on the heaven roll in the illusory palace and immediately attracted the attention of everyone. Naturally, some people were pleasantly surprised by this result, while others were disappointed. The Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan was the most pleasantly surprised. I did not expect Xuanxin to enter the top 10. Our Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan will prosper because of her. It is a foregone conclusion that we will become the leader of the 4 great ancient clans. The red-haired elder and the other top powers of the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan were all in high spirits and beaming with joy. Xuanxin's master was even more excited. Xuanxin had entered the top 10. Not only was she the master, but the entire Ice Phoenix branch's status in the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan would become important in the future. In the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan, the only person who was angry and even desperate was Feng Mingtian. How can this be? Su Feng, that lowly ant, has entered the top 10. How can that bitch Xuanxin enter the top 10 as well? Feng Mingtian could not help but tremble when he thought of Su Feng's revenge in the future. The ancient divine clans were Il Woyang, Fan Shu, Duanmu Rinjie, and the other geniuses were disappointed and angry. They all blamed Su Feng for this. The Blue Sky Territory Master, Xian Lingzi, Shu Yunkong, and the others did not even have time to be excited before they were surrounded by people who came to congratulate them. The competition for the top 10 had finally come to an end. However, the entrance test was not over yet. 10 spots in the top 100 were empty. The top 1,000 geniuses would have to fight for the spots in the Earth Realm Dojo. Then, there would be a fierce competition in the Mystery Realm Dojo. The top 10 geniuses will leave for now. The top 10 will be decided after the discussion among the sovereigns in Yuan Tiangong. Go now. 10 Yuan Tiangong Heaven Punishers flew from behind the sovereigns to the platform, where Su Feng and the other top 10 geniuses were. They protected the top 10 geniuses as they left the 7th gate of heaven. Each of these Heaven Punishers had the strength of an area master. Moreover, they were not ordinary area masters. They were top area masters who were only one step away from becoming overgods. When they arrived at the outer space, Su Feng said to the Heaven Punisher who followed him, "Sir, please stop. You can escort me here." The Heaven Punisher who followed Su Feng was an old man. He was burly, had a square face, and had a powerful aura. There was a murderous aura in his eyes. He was obviously an expert who had experienced countless storms. The man cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, please don't be so polite. My name is Fan Ming. Your Highness can call me by my name." Your Highness? Su Feng couldn't help but be startled when he heard this strange form of address. Moreover, this area master was so respectful, which surprised Su Feng. Fan Ming said respectfully, "The geniuses who enter the Heavenly Realm Dojo have incomparably noble statuses. They are known as the Children of the Heavens, so they are all addressed as Your Highness. Their statuses are comparable to overgods. From today onwards, I will be Your Highness's guard. My duty will be to protect Your Highness while you are living in the Heavenly Realm Dojo in Yuan Tiangong." The Children of the Heavens, an area master as a guard. Su Feng was shocked. The people of Yuan Tiangong were really generous. They actually had an area master as a guard for the geniuses of the Heavenly Realm Dojo. All of a sudden, he had a region lord protecting him by his side, and Su Feng was extremely delighted in his heart. Then I'll have to trouble Elder Fan in the future. Su Feng spoke in an extremely polite manner. If one really took a region lord to be a guard, then it would be slightly stupid. Fan Ming was very satisfied with Su Feng's attitude. "It's my honor to be able to protect Your Highness. Ordinary people can't get such a good job." Su Feng asked a few questions and learned about the inner workings of Yuan Tiangong. Fan Ming and the other Heaven Punishers were all disciples of venerable sovereigns. Although their origins were extraordinary and they had their own dojos in Yuan Tiangong, they were far inferior to the geniuses of the Heavenly Realm Dojo. They didn't have the qualifications to live in the Heavenly Realm Dojo. Moreover, the Yuan Tiangong wouldn't let people live there for free. Even being disciples of venerable sovereigns wasn't an option. Everything required merit points. Being a guard for a Heavenly Realm Dojo genius like Su Fong, not only allowed them to cultivate in the heavenly realm, it was very comfortable, but they could also earn merit points. After learning about the inner workings of Yuan Tiangong, Su Fong couldn't help but look forward to it. He couldn't wait to enter Yuan Tiangong. Fan Ming soon became familiar with Su Fong. He didn't mince his words. "Your Highness, when you enter Yuan Tiangong, do you have to bring a lot of family and friends with you?" Su Fong had entered the top 10. Other than the quota promised to Infinite Life, the Blue Dome Domain Master, and the others, he still had more than 200,000 spots. Naturally, he had to use all of them. Fan Ming said, "Your Highness can choose some important family members to bring into Yuan Tiangong. It's best if they don't exceed 10,000 people. Otherwise, Your Highness will not be able to afford it when you've just entered Yuan Tiangong." "Why is that?" "In Yuan Tiangong, everything requires merit points, including the people Your Highness brings into Yuan Tiangong. Living in the Yellow Territory, everyone has to pay at least 1 merit point every 10,000 years. Ah, Su Fong was dumbfounded. Everyone had to pay 1 merit point every 10,000 years. If he brought 200,000 people in, wouldn't that mean he had to pay more than 200,000 merit points? By now, Su Fong had a rough estimate of the value of merit points. When he made the bet with Fan Shu and the others, all the treasures were only worth 3,000 merit points. 200,000 merit points. Even Su Fong's entire fortune was not worth that much. Of course, that was excluding the Origin Sacred Mirror. Su Fong was depressed. Then what's the use of having so many spots? Fan Ming said, "This is also to encourage the geniuses. With Your Highness's strength, it will be difficult at the beginning. Later on, it will be easy for you to earn merit points." "I hope so." Su Fong smiled bitterly. It seemed that the plan to bring more than 200,000 people into Yuan Tiangong at once had to be changed. Su Fong and the other geniuses appeared in the void outside. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless burning eyes focused on the 10 geniuses. Shu Yunkong, Xian Lingzi, and the others immediately came forward and surrounded Su Fong. Then, they escorted him to the Blue Dome domain. Chapter 2194. "Your Highness Su Fong, please wait a moment." The middle-aged man with a big head from the Yin clan flew towards Su Fong with many of the Yin clan's higher-ups. "Your Highness." Xian Lingzi and the others were surprised. The title of Your Highness was a title used in the mortal world for princes. No one among the gods used this title. Su Fong cupped his fists and asked, "Senior, what can I do for you?" Yin Buji was a monster that was neither yin nor yang. He had repeatedly targeted Su Fong, and the Yin clan had also tried to suppress him. They even wanted to kill Su Fong. However, the Yin clan was, after all, an ancient god clan in the god realm. They had to maintain their dignity in front of everyone. Fan Ming stepped forward and stood beside Su Fong. Although he knew that the ancestor of the Yin clan would not dare to attack Su Fong under the protection of the Hunyuan Golden List, he still did not dare to be careless. Who knew? The ancestor of the Yin clan cupped his fists and said politely, "Your Highness Su Fong is the son of the heavenly Tao. You will be the mainstay of the human clan in the future. I'm here to apologize." Su Fong was surprised. "Apologize?" The ancestor of the Yin clan said, "My disciple, Yin Buji, has repeatedly offended Your Highness because of my lack of discipline. I'm here today to apologize." The Blue Dome Domain Lord and the others were all shocked. So were the onlookers. Although the Yin clan was not as powerful as the ancient god clans in the ancient god realm, it was still a powerful god clan that surpassed the G people. The seemingly funny ancestor of the Yin clan was a peerless expert that was infinitely close to the sovereign realm. Now, he was leading the entire clan to apologize to a divine sovereign realm cultivator. How could the onlookers not be shocked by such a scene? Only then did they realize that Su Fong, a heaven realm prodigy from the Yuan Tiangong, had a high status that was far beyond their imagination. Even the powerful Yin clan had to bow their heads. The ancestor of the Yin clan grabbed a storage ring with his right hand and slowly flew to Su Fong. The Yin tribe's ancestor said, Here are 100 creation saint elixirs and 100,000 peak supreme elixirs. Please accept them as an apology. Hiss, hiss. Gasps could be heard from the surrounding people as they looked at the ring of holding with burning desire in their eyes. 100 creation saint pills was something that even overgods would be tempted by. Moreover, there were also 100,000 peak supreme grade pills. The Yin clan was truly generous. I accept Senior's kind intentions. Su Fong grabbed the storage ring and put it into his body. In the past, he had never taken Yin Buji seriously. He was just a clown. Now that he had entered the Yuan Tiangong heavenly realm, he could completely look down on Yin Buji and wouldn't care about this person at all. The Yin tribe apologized in public, showing enough sincerity. There was no need for Su Fong to continue opposing the Yin tribe. Of course, Su Fong wouldn't believe the Yin clan's so-called sincerity. The Yin tribe's ancestor smiled satisfactorily and chuckled at Su Fong. When Yin Buji is done with the palace entrance test, he will come to apologize. I won't disturb your highness, Su Fong, any longer. Goodbye. The Yin tribe's ancestor left with the Yin tribe's higher-ups. If I didn't enter the top 10, or even the top 100, the Yin tribe would have a completely different attitude towards me. Right? Su Fong thought. The Yin tribe's people flew far away. One of the Yin tribe's higher-ups couldn't help but say, Ancestor, even if Su Fong becomes a heavenly realm genius in the Yuan Tiangong heavenly realm, our tribe doesn't need to be afraid of him. Now that the ancestor has personally apologized, shouldn't the Yin tribe's ancestor snorted. Aren't you making a mountain out of a molehill and damaging the Yin tribe's reputation? The Yin tribe's higher-ups trembled as if they were frozen in ice. The Yin tribe's ancestor said in a deep voice, Remember, our tribe will either kill our enemies with a single blow and leave no room for future troubles. If we can't do that, then we'll resolve it as soon as possible before we become mortal enemies. Then he said slowly, You don't know that almost all the venerable emperors in the Yuan Tiangong think that the ultimate genius who can enter the exalted celestial mountain must be either Di Yuan, Su Fong, or Goddess Luo. Su Fong is even more likely to surpass the other two. Such a genius is the focus of all the venerable emperors, yet the Yin tribe still wants to get rid of him as soon as possible. The Ji people are a good example. The Yin tribe's higher-ups were all stunned. Su Fong returned to the 9 domains of the Azure Dome sky. Master is mighty. Young Master Su Fong is mighty. In the inner space of the magic treasure, except for the 100,000 elites in Su Fong's inner world, the other subordinates and God from the Azure Dome star field cheered in unison when they saw Su Fong. They were all very excited. He returned to the palace where he lived. Experts from various forces came to congratulate him. Su Fong claimed that he was injured when he entered the palace and needed to recuperate in seclusion. He left all the guests to Shu Yunkong and Xianlingzi. Su Fong sealed the palace with an array and asked Fan Ming to guard outside. Then he went to the array in the depths of the palace. It turned out that he planned to use the Origin Sacred Mirror to help Shu Wanjin escape from the shackles of the Descendant Palace. Although Su Fong had almost blind faith in Shu Wanjin and believed that she would be able to break out of her shackles and regain her freedom with the help of the Primordial Origin Sacred Mirror, Su Fong still felt a little uneasy in his heart. The Descendant Palace was not an ordinary dangerous place. Even venerable emperors could not shake it. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to escape from the inside. QL 11-inch, I must help Senior's sister escape at all costs. But I must calm down first. Su Fong's eyes showed determination. He took a deep breath and recited the scripture of the struggle for the great Tao. Gradually, Su Fong's heart sank into a tranquil state. He forgot about the Yuan Tiangong entrance test. He forgot about the changes in heaven and earth. He forgot about his father, Luo, Shu Wanjin, and all his relatives, friends, and subordinates. He would forget everything and immerse himself in the realm of emptiness of his true self. About 3 years. Su Fong's state of mind, the Yang Qi, Yang Spirit, Divine Essence, and the Yin and Yang forces of the world were all adjusted to a peak state. Then Su Fong took out the Origin Sacred Mirror. A yang spirit followed the yang qi from the red mirror into the mysterious space inside the ancient mirror. With Su Fang's current cultivation and the birth of 69 yang meridians, he could fly easily in the ancient mirror space. However, it was still difficult to see all the mysteries of the origin sacred mirror. Su Fang came to the space in the center of the ancient mirror and released his yang qi and consciousness. Senior sister, I'm ready. A mysterious black mirror appeared, carrying Shu Wanjin's gaze. Very good. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Shu Wanjin's usually calm and cold voice sounded slightly excited. After being trapped in the Advent Divine Palace for so many years, how could she not be excited when the day of her escape finally came? Activate the power of the Nine Yang. Your primordial spirit will enter the black mirror with the power of the Nine Yang and come to the black mirror space in my hand. Yes, this was the first time Su Fang had entered the black mirror space of the origin sacred mirror. He could not help but feel nervous. He slowly activated the power of the Nine Yang and injected it into the black mirror. At the same time, he released his primordial spirit and projected it into the black mirror along with the Yang Qi. In an instant, the ancient mirror's power contracted into the space inside. The black mirror released an astonishing suction force. Su Fang's primordial spirit seemed to have experienced endless time and space, traversing the universe. It felt like countless epochs, but it also felt like a short moment. Su Fang's primordial spirit appeared in a mysterious space-time. The space-time was vast and deep. It was ancient and mysterious. Billowing cold qi swept out, as if he was in an icy world. This cold qi was not the nine-yin qi that Su Fang was familiar with. Instead, it was the ancient mirror's unique primordial spirit qi. However, it was not primordial yang qi, but primordial yin qi. It did not make Su Fang feel cold at all. Instead, it made him feel indescribably comfortable. Behind him was a huge red mirror. It was the space-time passage formed by the primordial spirit mirror's yang side. The two mirrors could ignore space and time. They formed a passage for primordial spirit and yang qi to traverse outside the Advent Divine Palace and the Celestial Palace. This gave Su Fang a deeper understanding of the primordial spirit mirror's supreme power. Su Fang, we finally meet. A burst of cold qi rolled out. Then a familiar cold voice sounded. He looked over. A yang spirit appeared in front of him. It was a woman in black. She had long black hair and a pale face. However, her face was extremely beautiful. Usually, people were used to describing a beauty as devastatingly beautiful. However, this woman's face could not be described as devastatingly beautiful. It could be described as devastatingly beautiful. Her eyes were as cold as ice and as deep as the abyss. She looked at Su Fang with eyes full of gratification and happiness. Su Fang cried out in surprise. You are senior sister Shu Wanjin. Who else can appear in the primordial spirit mirror other than me? Little brat, we finally meet. I didn't expect that we would meet so soon. The familiar cold voice sounded. Who else could it be but Shu Wanjin? Senior sister, you are so beautiful, Su Fang exclaimed. He had to admit that Shu Wanjin was more beautiful than Goddess Luo and Xuanqin. It was not because of her looks, but because she cultivated the 9 transformations. And Su Fang cultivated the 9 yang 9 transformations, which had a fatal attraction to him. Little brat, you are thinking the wrong way again, aren't you? Shu Wanjin's yang spirit revealed a smile that was not a smile, but a supreme pressure was released. Su Fang quivered. It was as if he had returned to the first time he communicated with Shu Wanjin. At that time, he was still a trash who could not cultivate qi. Senior sister, I am sincerely praising you. I definitely do not have any other thoughts. Senior sister is a supreme goddess in my heart. How would I dare to have the slightest blasphemy? Su Fang laughed embarrassedly. He quickly changed the topic. Senior sister, you are now inside the Palace of Advent? That's right. Take a look. Shu Wanjin nodded. A 9 divine aura enveloped Su Fang's primordial spirit. Chapter 2195. With the help of Shu Wanjin's divine power, Su Fang's primordial spirit saw a shocking scene and was completely stunned. He saw huge stars floating in the void. They were so close that he could reach out and grab them. The stars emitted a bright light, making the void as bright as day. The dazzling light made Su Fang's primordial spirit feel like he could not open his eyes. Thump! Thump! A pure and mysterious natural energy surged in the void. It was Su Fang's yin-yang energy, but it was many times purer than the yin-yang energy that Su Fang cultivated. If he cultivated here, it would be 1,000 times better than outside. He took a closer look. Su Fang noticed that these stars weren't motionless, and they were moving in an extremely profound pattern. They contained the supreme laws of the Heaven Tao, and it seemed like he could see through the supreme laws of the entire Heaven Tao. However, when he tried to comprehend it carefully, he was unable to capture it. Su Fang was shocked and asked, "Senior sister, what is this place? Is this really the inside of the Advent Palace?" Shu Wanjin said, "This is naturally the inside of the Advent Palace, but to be more precise, is a chessboard world." Chessboard? Yes, it is a chessboard. With the void as the chessboard and the stars as the chess pieces, it contains the supreme heavenly Tao. I call it the heavenly Tao chessboard. Su Fang asked in shock, "Who can play such a game?" Destroying a star was a piece of cake. Even a divine emperor could do it. However, to play chess with stars as chess pieces, what kind of amazing strength and realm did one have to have? Su Fang guessed that only those venerable sovereigns could do it. Take a closer look. Shu Wanjin then activated the primeval origin, sacred mirror, and released a pure, divine might. Everything around them rapidly shrank. Even the incomparably huge stars rapidly shrank. Su Fang's primordial spirit could finally see through the void and see a deeper level of scenery. It was a small room with simple furnishings. There was only a table and a chair. On the desk, there was an incomplete chess game. This was actually a study room. There was also a bookshelf in the study. The bookshelf was broken and there was nothing on it. Su Fang was shocked to find that his primordial spirit consciousness was trapped inside the chessboard. A black-clothed woman sat cross-legged on the chessboard. Beside her were black and white chess pieces. She was Shu Wanjin's original body. Before I entered the Advent Divine Palace, I was lucky enough to obtain the Origin Divine Mirror. With the help of the ancient mirror, I was able to survive and enter the Advent Divine Palace. When I came to this room, I saw that this chessboard was extraordinary. I couldn't help but take a few more glances at it. Who knew that my soul and physical body would be sucked into the world of the chessboard, and it would be difficult for me to leave? Shu Wanjin's cold voice sounded. Who would have thought that Shu Wan was actually trapped in a chessboard? It was truly inconceivable. However, this was the mysterious and incomparably dangerous Advent Divine Palace. This chessboard was obviously a supreme divine tool. Trapping a true god wasn't something shocking. Fortunately, in the chessboard world, I can cultivate the 9 transformations. Moreover, the speed of my cultivation is astonishing. What's even more peculiar is that in this chessboard world, I can also attract the chaos divine tribulation. Otherwise, I would be trapped here alive. When Shu Wanjin said this, Su Fang tried to sense her aura. He found that her aura was extremely faint. She had actually reached the level of a domain lord. Senior sister, you're a domain lord expert? Su Fang was surprised and shocked. Shu Wanjin nodded. With the help of the chaos chi you gave me, I just broke through not long ago. When I entered the Advent Divine Palace, I was only a deity, emperor, realm, true god. All these years, I have been cultivating here. My cultivation speed is several times faster than outside. Su Fang couldn't help but feel deep respect for Shu Wanjin. Being trapped in the heavenly chessboard, all alone, she was able to persevere until now. Moreover, she was able to advance from the deity emperor realm to the domain lord realm. Shu Wanjin continued, "Do you see that bookshelf? Is there anything special about that bookshelf?" That's right. The Tianji life shrinking technique I gave you was found on the bookshelf before I was sucked into the heavenly chessboard. Tianji life shrinking technique. Su Fang's heart was in turmoil. He didn't expect the Tianji life shrinking technique to be from the Advent Divine Palace. When I first obtained the Tianji life shrinking technique, I thought it was a cultivation technique to cultivate the Tao heart. After cultivating it to a certain level, I discovered the supreme ability to control fate. This study room is obviously not simple. How can it be simple if it can store the heavenly chessboard and the Tianji life shrinking technique? It's a pity that the room was destroyed. Other than the Tianji life shrinking technique, there is nothing else on the bookshelf. I suspect that the Tian Yin Xian Jie that you cultivated also came from this bookshelf. When the Advent Divine Palace was destroyed, the Tian Yin Xian Jie drifted from the inside of the palace to the outside world, and finally to the outside world. Xu Wanjin speculated that Su Fong wasn't far from the truth. Senior sister, what is the origin of this Advent Divine Palace? A mere study room that stores the heavenly chessboard and the Tianji life shrinking technique. Who else do you think would have such a shocking study room? Su Fong already had an answer in his heart. It was rumored that the Advent Divine Palace came from the celestial Worthy Mountain. Now it seemed that this rumor wasn't groundless. It most likely came from the celestial Worthy Mountain, and it wasn't hard to guess who the owner of this study room was. Even if it wasn't the heavenly Lord of creation himself, it was a supreme existence on par with him. Xu Wanjin said decisively, "It's meaningless to talk about this. Let's think of a way to help me break out of the chessboard world and leave the Advent Divine Palace." Su Fong had no confidence. Senior sister, how confident are you in breaking out of the heavenly chessboard? About 60%. Only 60%. Su Fong was a little worried. How can there be anything in this world that is completely certain? 60% is already a rather high probability. Even if there's only a slim chance, I still have to give it a try. Senior sister, I'm only at the 7th heaven of the hierarch realm. Will I be a burden to you? It's all right. You've already formed 69 yang meridians. Moreover, you're only assisting me this time. I still have to rely on myself. Let's work together to activate the Origin Divine Mirror and use the yin-yang transformation. It should be able to help me break through the chessboard. Su Fong didn't care about the cost. The yang qi in his 69 yang meridians gushed out crazily into the Origin Divine Mirror. In just a few breaths' time, the yang qi in Su Fong's body was almost sucked dry. With the help of the invisible passage between the yin and yang sides of the Origin Divine Mirror, the yang qi continuously flowed into the central space-time. In the central space-time of the Origin Divine Mirror, Xu Wanjin and Su Fong formed hand seals at the same time and used the yin-yang transformation. The power of 9 yang and 9 yin merged together and activated the Origin Divine Mirror. Boom, boom, boom. Inside the heavenly chessboard world, the stars crumbled and turned into nothingness under the Origin Divine Mirror's supreme divine power. The void shook violently as the Origin Divine Mirror's supreme power tore a large hole in the void. I can finally break free. Xu Wanjin was overjoyed. She grabbed the Origin Divine Mirror and flew out of the crack. Who knew Xu Wanjin turned into an ice sculpture when she saw the scene? QL11 outside the void, there was still a starry sky formed by huge stars. The stars were arranged and moved like the eternal heavenly Tao. Su Fong's body instantly turned cold. How can this be? There was a long silence. Xu Wanjin slowly said, I understand now. The heavenly chessboard is a chessboard within chessboard. Unless we completely destroy the chessboard or break the chessboard, we can break free from the chessboard shackles. I still underestimated the heavenly chessboard's power. Then what should we do? Su Fong's heart was filled with disappointment, pessimism, and even despair. How could the heavenly chessboard set up by the supreme existence of the celestial Worthy Mountain be broken by God? Breaking the chessboard would require a powerful strength that far exceeded Su Fong's expectations. Xu Wanjin fell into silence again. After a long time, she recovered from her state of extreme disappointment. Her voice became steady and cold. It's not that there's no way, and there's more than one. Xu Wanjin's words made Su Fong's spirit rise. Senior sister, what's the way? The first method is to wait for you to form 81 yang meridians and I to cultivate 81 yin meridians. We will cultivate the 9 yang, 9 transformations, and 9 yin, 9 transformations to greater mastery. When that happens, we will be able to push the chaos yuan sacred mirror to its limits and break the heavenly Tao chessboard easily. Greater mastery of the 9 yang transformation and 9 yin transformation. Su Fang's heart was filled with bitterness. Now, every yang meridian that was born was extremely difficult. How long would it take to form 81 yang meridians? If it was in the past, Su Fang would naturally have the confidence and patience to cultivate the 9 yang transformation to greater mastery. However, in less than 10 million years, the world would undergo another upheaval, which meant that the apocalypse would sweep across all worlds. Su Fang did not have much time left. Shu Wanjin continued. The other way is for you to enter the Advent Palace and use the Origin Divine Mirror's yang and yin sides to break the heavenly chessboard in one fell swoop. Su Fang's eyes lit up as hope reignited. The Origin Divine Mirror was divided into 2 sides. Although they could sense each other, they were blocked by the Advent Palace and the power of nature and could not fuse together. If they entered the Advent Palace, the 2 of them could activate both sides of the Origin Divine Mirror at the same time and use the combined power of the yang and yin sides to break the heavenly chessboard. At the same time, he also stripped off the blood and water, condensed clones, cultivated other cultivation techniques, and constantly raised his cultivation base, as well as the power of various divine abilities. In addition, Su Fang had also started to use phase to upgrade the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. He wanted to fuse it with his natal divine artifact as soon as possible and become a powerful natal artifact. He spent 10 years in the time cavern. The yang qi in his yang meridians had been restored, and Su Fang was no longer weak and powerless. At this time, the guard Fanming transmitted his primordial spirit. Your Highness, Lord Mo Tiangong is here. Do you want to meet him? During Su Fang's seclusion, Fanming had refused all guests. However, Mo Tiangong was not just anyone, and Su Fang had to meet him. Congratulations, Your Highness Su Fang. In the front hall, Mo Tiangong saw Su Fang and immediately congratulated Su Fang with a smile. If not for Senior's help, how could I, Su Fang, be where I am today? Su Fang very respectfully cupped his fists and bowed to Mo Tiangong. Mo Tiangong smiled. You've helped me a little, and you're about to enter Yuan Tiangong's Heavenly Realm dojo. Your status is on par with mine, so you don't need to call me senior anymore. As long as you don't call me blacksmith like that old bastard Sheng Wuji, you can call me whatever you want. 3. The Divine Lord also came with Mo Tiangong. He cupped his fists and bowed. When I was in Kuan Su's divine sect, I wanted to call Your Highness Senior, but Your Highness didn't give me the chance. When we meet again in the future, I have no choice but to call you Senior. The 3 of them left. Although Mo Tiangong had not been promoted for long, he was a master blacksmith. His status was higher than that of ordinary overgods. Fanming was secretly surprised to see that Su Fang and Mo Tiangong were so familiar with each other, and their relationship was not ordinary. Mo Tiangong said, When I first met you, you were only a true immortal. It's only been 100,000 years, and you've already achieved so much. You're ranked 3rd among Yuan Tiangong's peerless geniuses. TSK, this identity. I knew you would soar to the sky, but I didn't expect you to have such amazing achievements. 3rd, when Su Fang left the 7th gate of heaven, he did not announce the top 10 rankings. He did not expect him to be ranked 3rd. You still don't know your ranking? I've been cultivating in seclusion recently, so I haven't received any news. So that's how it is. Some venerable sovereigns believe that your ranking is even higher than Di Yuan's. However, Venerable Emperor Sangxiu and only Wei Venerable Emperor think that they should lower your ranking, so they're ranked behind Di Yuan and Goddess Luo. Su Fang thought for a moment and immediately understood Venerable Emperor Sangxiu and only Wei Venerable Emperor's intentions. They wanted to prevent him from attracting jealousy and hatred. They wanted to protect him completely. He could not help but feel grateful to the two of them. Su Fong calculated that since he was ranked third, he would receive about 35 spots. He was very happy, but he was still in a dilemma about how to deal with these spots. I've already helped you repair your magic treasure, and it's been upgraded to a high-grade divine artifact. At least I didn't lose too much face. This magic treasure is truly extraordinary. If I hadn't studied the jade slip you gave me, I wouldn't have been able to repair it, let alone upgrade it. Mo Tiangong swept out the Xianguang. Within the Xianguang was a magic treasure. It was none other than the 10,000 Mammoth Dharma. QL 11-inch, it's been upgraded to a high-grade divine artifact all of a sudden. Su Fong was pleasantly surprised. He could not help but look at Mo Tiangong in a new light. Then, he happily put away the 10,000 Mammoth Dharma. Mo Tiangong said, "It's a pity that this magic treasure doesn't have a primordial spirit. Otherwise, its grade would be one level higher." Primordial spirit? The primordial spirit of the 10,000 Mammoth Dharma was Yu Miaomei. She was currently in the 9 realms of the Green Dome. However, Yu Miaomei was not an ordinary primordial spirit. She was a life form that was born from a cultivator's womb. Su Fong had never treated her as a primordial spirit. Su Fong thanked him. "Senior has helped me refine my natal divine artifact and also repaired my magic treasure. I, Su Fong, will definitely remember this favor. Don't call me Senior anymore." Mo Tiangong waved his hand. "It's just a small matter. It's not worth mentioning. If you want to return the favor, just give me a few spots to enter Yuan Tiangong. Although I don't have any descendants, I do have a few good-for-nothing disciples. 50,000 spots. Is that enough?" Su Fong immediately asked for 50,000 spots. Mo Tiangong was shocked. 3. Divine Lord and Fan Ming were even more dumbfounded. Mo Tiangong laughed. "You probably don't know the value of a spot, right? Right now, a spot to enter Yuan Tiangong has been raised by the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce to the price of 30 million divine jades per spot. Moreover, there's no supply. How much do you think 50,000 spots are worth? Are you willing to give them away?" Su Fong sucked in a breath of cold air. Then he said, "It's just 50,000 spots. Why can't I give them away? I don't need that many spots. Just give me 1,000. Mo Tiangong stroked his beard and laughed. Su Fong faced the problem of how to deal with so many spots. He asked Mo Tiangong for advice. Mo Tiangong pointed at Fan Ming and said, "I don't ask about anything in Yuan Tiangong. Why don't you ask him instead of me?" Fan Ming thought for a moment, then said, "Your Highness, I suggest that you sell most of the spots and buy some high-grade spirit items, resources, or even pills. You can't bring more than 1,000 people into Yuan Tiangong to admit defeat." Su Fong asked why. "Merit points, of course. A spot only means that you have the right to live in Yuan Tiangong. It doesn't mean that you have to support everyone in Yuan Tiangong. If you can't support yourself, you'll still be kicked out of Yuan Tiangong. Your Highness has just entered Yuan Tiangong. If you bring too many people in, you won't be able to bear the cost of 1 merit point every 10,000 years. What's more, you still have to buy a place to live and cultivate. If your Highness didn't win a lot of points from those geniuses, you wouldn't be able to last more than a few days. The most important thing is your Highness cultivation. If you don't have merit points, it'll be impossible for you to improve your strength quickly. You won't even be able to keep your qualification to cultivate in the Heavenly Realm Dojo. If you sell the spots in exchange for high-grade spirit items and resources, you can exchange them for merit points in Yuan Tiangong. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Once your Highness has a firm foothold in the Heavenly Realm Dojo, the spots won't mean much to your Highness. You can also bear the merit points. It won't be too late to bring people in then." Su Fong agreed with Fan Ming's analysis. After sending off Mo Tiangong, Su Fong started to think about how to distribute the spots. Soon, he came to a decision. Just as he was about to think of a way to get rid of the extra spots, there was a buzz. A rune talisman deep inside his body moved. It was Goddess Luo. "Su Fong, is your cultivation done?" "Just finished. Where are you?" "I'm with my elders. It's not convenient for me to meet you." I'm contacting you this time to tell you that I'm giving you all the spots I have. I don't have any use for them anyway. Su Fangdao was shocked. Even if you don't have any use for them, you can sell them or give them away. You're giving me so many at once, Goddess Luo laughed. What's mine is yours. Take them. Su Fang was touched. A few days later, Primordius Heavenly Palace's Heaven Punisher delivered an identity token as well as a storage ring. There were more than 300,000 tokens in the storage ring. They were different from Su Fang's identity token. These tokens were khaki-colored. Only with such tokens could one enter Yuan Tiangong. There was also a jade slip in the storage ring. It contained all the laws and rules of Yuan Tiangong. Chapter 2197. In order to give the geniuses entering Yuan Tiangong time to prepare, Yuan Tiangong decided to send the geniuses into Yuan Tiangong 1,000 years later. Su Fang memorized the various laws and rules of Yuan Tiangong, and then began to deal with the affairs after leaving. First, he discussed with Shu Yunkong and Xian Lingzi, and finally decided to set the number of people who would enter Yuan Tiangong with Su Fang at 10,000. At this time, Su Fang had close to 600,000 subordinates, most of whom were from the Shu clan. Shu Yunkong decided that he would personally lead the Shu clan outside. Xian Lingzi selected 10,000 from Su Fang's experts and Big Goblin to enter Yuan Tiangong with Su Fang. Ling, Xiangmei, Count Chong, and the others were naturally among them. Su Fang decided to sell the remaining spots in exchange for resources, and then use these resources to quickly gain a foothold in Yuan Tiangong. As long as he gained a foothold in Yuan Tiangong's Heavenly Realm Dojo, it wouldn't be difficult to obtain a spot. What worried Su Fang was that Bai Ling and Qingyu had gone to the outside world, and there was still no news from them. There is also no news from Luo. As for where Shu Yunkong and the others would stay in Yuan Tiangong, Su Fang had already planned. 10,000 manifestations Dharma. He wanted to use the 10,000 manifestations Dharma to create a place outside the entrance of Yuan Tiangong for Shu Yunkong and the others to live in. Although the outside of the entrance of Yuan Tiangong couldn't be compared to the inside of Yuan Tiangong, it was definitely an excellent place for cultivation. Moreover, there was absolute guarantee of safety here. With Yuan Tiangong experts keeping watch, even if there were resurrected experts who came here, they would be quickly killed. As for the other forces in the universe, with Su Fang's current status, how many people would dare to cause trouble? At this time, the entrance test for Yuan Tiangong had all ended. Some geniuses performed outstandingly in the palace entrance examination and were favored by the Yuan Tiangong masters. Not long after the palace entrance examination, they were taken in as disciples. However, most of them were master gods, and no emperor masters had taken the initiative to take them in as disciples. However, Unidao Emperor had set a precedent. He was the first to take the initiative to accept a disciple, and it was even a personal disciple. This disciple was none other than Celestial Treasure. When the news reached Su Fang was surprised and shocked. He didn't expect Celestial Treasure to be valued by one Dao Emperor and be personally accepted as a disciple. Amidst his astonishment, Su Fang was also happy for Celestial Treasure. After all, Celestial Treasure was Emperor Celestial Treasure's life's work. To be a disciple of one Dao Empyrean was equivalent to having a powerful backer. He no longer needed to worry about Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. QL 11, Su Fang asked Fan Ming to deliver the prehistoric spiritual items that only Dao Emperor had taken a fancy to. He also gave Tian Bao a heavy gift as a congratulatory gift. Some people speculated that an Emperor Master would take the initiative to accept Su Fang as a disciple, especially Emperor Sangxiu. However, Emperor Sangxiu didn't say anything, which surprised everyone. Su Fang didn't think much of it. He hadn't relied on any powerhouses to get to where he was from a small world, but on his own efforts. Even without any backer, he was confident that he could eventually reach the peak. Some geniuses came to pay their respects to Su Fang. Most of them were geniuses ranked below the top 100. Firstly, they wanted to thank Su Fang for his help in the divine world of Panhong. Secondly, they wanted to get closer to Su Fang. There was an endless stream of geniuses who came to pay their respects, numbering in the thousands. Fan Ming was shocked by Su Fang's prestige among the many origin primordial geniuses. These geniuses that were able to enter Primordius' heavenly palace, even if they were ranked below 100, would still be considered peak peerless geniuses in any star territory. With the help of Primordius' heavenly palace as a platform, it wouldn't be long before they rapidly grew and became a peerless powerhouse that could shake the world. At that time, all of these would be Su Fang's formidable assistants, and when they were combined, how shocking would that be? Fan Ming thought to himself. Even if Su Fang comes from a humble background, it's not impossible for him to surpass those geniuses of noble birth in the future and become an overlord of the myriad worlds. It's an opportunity for me to be by his side. I must seize it. Sun Qi's performance in the entrance test was very good, and he successfully made it into the top 1,000. After visiting Su Fang, he stayed in the 9 realms of the Azure Dome. He and Xu Jiyue had already obtained Xu Yunkong's approval and were preparing to hold a marriage ceremony before entering Yuan Tiangong. To Su Fang's surprise, Sun Qi planned to give all the 100,000 slots he had obtained to Su Fang as a betrothal gift for his marriage with Xu Jiyue. Su Fang couldn't refuse. In the end, he took all of them and planned to sell them for resources before returning them to Sun Qi. During this time, Su Fang also contacted Xuanxin and prepared to visit the ancient Divine Phoenix clan personally. Xuanxin told Su Fang that the upper echelons of the ancient Divine Phoenix clan were divided. Xuanxin's master strongly advocated for a marriage between Xuanxin and Su Fang. Some of the upper echelons, led by the clan leader, still insisted that Su Fang join the ancient Divine Phoenix clan. There were also a few people who proposed a marriage between the ancient Divine Phoenix clan and the Imperial people. They wanted to sacrifice Xuanxin to curry favor with the Imperial people. I still underestimated the ancient Divine Phoenix clan. Being a heavenly realm genius in Yuan Tiangong is not enough to deter them. My strength is far from enough. Su Fang temporarily dismissed the idea of going to the ancient Divine Phoenix clan. Before entering Yuan Tiangong, he would definitely have to make a trip to the ancient Divine Phoenix clan. When that time came, he would have to openly take Xuanxin out of the ancient Divine Phoenix clan. On this day, Su Fang received an invitation. It turned out that Di Yuan was planning to hold a grand banquet and invite all the geniuses who had entered Yuan Tiangong to attend. Su Fang naturally knew Di Yuan's intention. He was just trying to buy people's hearts. Di Yuan was domineering to the core. He wanted everyone in the world to be slaves to the imperial people. Su Fang hated him very much. Naturally, he wasn't very interested in his invitation. He casually threw the invitation into his storage ring. "Your Highness, someone from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce is here to see you. His name is Jiang Baozhen. He says he's an old friend of yours." Unexpectedly, Jiang Baozhen also came to visit Su Fang. Su Fang owed Jiang Baozhen a favor in the past, especially regarding the Golden Rainbow King's treasure. He had made an agreement with Jiang Baozhen, but it was left unsettled in the end. Moreover, the purple-marked divine jade that Jiang Baozhen had given to Su Fang was very useful to Su Fang. Su Fang had no choice but to meet him to settle the old favor. "Greetings, Your Highness." Jiang Baozhen was about to kneel before Su Fang, but was stopped by Su Fang. At this time, in front of Su Fang, Jiang Baozhen had completely lost his former air of being the young master of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. He trembled as if he was facing a supreme expert. Su Fang smiled and asked, "Brother Jiang, are you looking for me?" "Your Highness, Su Fang should know why I'm here," Jiang Baozhen said courageously. Su Fang knew that he had come to visit Su Fang under the orders of the fatty, surnamed Zhu from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce, to buy a slot. After thinking for a moment, Su Fang said, "I won't sell a single one of my slots to the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce." Jiang Baozhen couldn't help feeling disappointed. Unexpectedly, Su Fang continued, "However, I'm planning to find a Chamber of Commerce to auction off the slots that I don't need. I wonder if the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce is interested." "Auction the slots?" Jiang Baojian's spirits rose. He continued, I wonder how many slots Your Highness Su Fong can take out. If it's too little, the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce won't agree. After all, the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce buys the slots from the peerless geniuses precisely to auction them off. That way, they can earn more profits. Su Fong said, about 700,000 slots, enough for the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce to organize an auction, right? 700,000? It's really 700,000? Jiang Baojian jumped in fright. After receiving a confirmation from Su Fong, he was overjoyed. It turned out that for the Golden Rainbow King's treasure, Jiang Baojian had exhausted all of his father's wealth and used all of his connections to try to find out the location of the Golden Rainbow King's treasure through the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce. Then, he would join forces with Su Fong to search for the treasure. Unexpectedly, the information was leaked. Jiang Baojian's information about the Golden Rainbow King's treasure was found out by a high-ranking member of the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce. He was transferred to the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce's main hall, and after some coercion and bribery, he had no choice but to report all the information he had gathered to this high-ranking member. However, Jiang Baojian was still considered shrewd. He secretly kept a trick up his sleeve and did not reveal that the heaven-splitting rainbow shuttle had fallen into Su Fong's hands. Otherwise, it would bring great trouble to Su Fong. Later, the news of the Golden Rainbow King's treasure being found by someone else spread, and the matter of searching for the treasure was naturally left unsettled. Jiang Baojian was abandoned like trash and remained in the main hall. His status was lowly, and he played the role of a follower. This time, he came to visit Su Fong because he saw Su Fong as a life-saving straw. He hoped to obtain some quotas from Su Fong. Even if it was just a few hundred, it would be enough to help him out of his current predicament. This time, he obtained 700,000 quotas from Su Fong to enter Yuan Tiangong. It would be enough for him to make a comeback and obtain a good position in the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce. Su Fong continued, however, I have a request. I will appoint someone from the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce to host the auction for these quotas. Jiang Baojian readily agreed. The high-ranking members of the Chamber of Commerce will definitely agree to this condition. May I know who Your Highness Su Fong intends to host the auction? Su Fong smiled. In the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce, who else do I know other than you? The person who will host the auction will naturally be you. Ah, Jiang Baojian was dumbfounded. He felt dizzy and almost fainted. Now, the number of spots to enter Primordia's Heavenly Palace had been inflated to 30 million divine jade treasures per spot. With 700,000 spots, just how terrifying of an auction was this? Hosting such a large auction would naturally greatly increase his status in the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce. How could it be just a reversal of fortune? Jiang Baojian still couldn't believe it. Your Highness Su Fong, are you joking? Su Fong smiled. When have I, Su Fong, ever joked? 700,000 quotas are all for you to auction. If Tongbao Chamber of Commerce is given to someone else, I won't agree. Thank you, Your Highness Su Fong. Jiang Baojian hurriedly knelt on the ground to express his gratitude. Su Fong used his divine power to lift him up. After hesitating for a moment, Jiang Baojian revealed an expression of going all out. Your Highness Su Fong has done me such a great favor. I will not hide any information about Your Highness Su Fong. Su Fong wasn't surprised. Information about me? Jiang Baojian changed to a primordial spirit transmission. A few days ago, a high-ranking member of the Tongbao Chamber of Commerce accidentally revealed that someone spent a large sum of money to have Tongbao Chamber of Commerce send out experts to attack Your Highness Su Fong's relatives. Chapter 2198. Where did you get your information from? Is it reliable? QL11, Su Fong's murderous aura bore down on Jiang Baojian, causing him to tremble and almost collapse. How could he still speak? Seeing Jiang Baojian's state, Su Fong hurriedly retracted his aura. Jiang Baojian panted for a while before recovering. He felt like he had walked a circle around the edge of death, and his heart was filled with fear and trepidation. Jiang Baojian hurriedly said, My current identity was accidentally mentioned by Home Master Zhu and a high-ranking official, and I overheard it. That high-ranking official is an important person in charge of Yuan Tiangong affairs. In the entire Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce, he can be considered a big shot. His words can't be wrong. Su Fong thought for a moment, then sneered. How could that high-ranking official of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce reveal such secret information to anyone else, and even so coincidentally be overheard by you? He clearly wanted to use you to tell me this information, and he planned to use it to threaten me so that he could sell the Yuan Tiangong quota to the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. Jiang Baojin suddenly realized that he had been used by the high-ranking official of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. Even if he didn't tell Su Fong, the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce would have used other means to let Su Fong know in order to obtain the Yuan Tiangong quota. Su Fong continued. Did you hear who hired the experts of the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce to deal with my relatives? And which relatives of mine? Jiang Baojin said helplessly, I don't know. They didn't talk about it at the time. Su Fong was burning with anxiety, but he suppressed it. After thinking for a while, he said to Jiang Baojin, Contact Hall Master Zhu. I want to talk to him personally. Jiang Baojin took out a rune talisman without hesitation and injected his transcendence, energy, and thought. In a moment, a Xianguang was released from the rune talisman and quickly condensed into the nascent soul shadow of that Fatty Zhu from the Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. Without waiting for Fatty Zhu to speak, Su Fong said coldly, I want to know who paid to kill my relatives and which relatives? Fatty Zhu's essence, soul, phantom image revealed a troubled expression. Prince Su Fong, you also know that Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce has always been honest when doing business. If you reveal the customer's mission, Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce, Su Fong rudely interrupted Fatty Zhu's words, his tone sharp and cold. Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce has two choices. First, tell me everything, and Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce will get the right to auction off 700,000 yuan Tiangong spots. Fatty Zhu's smile froze. What if it isn't? Secondly, Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce concealed the news and sent experts to kill my family. I, Su Fong, swear that if any of my family members lose a single strand of hair, not only will the person behind the scenes not be able to escape death, I will also eradicate Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. His Highness Su Fong is so domineering. What a big tone. I can't do it now, but that doesn't mean I can't do it in the future. Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce can definitely give it a try. Su Fong's voice was filled with lofty dominance and strong murderous intent. Fatty Zhu thought for a long time. Then he laughed loudly. His Highness Su Fong is like the sun in the sky right now, and his future achievements are limitless. Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce will make an exception for His Highness this time. The person who paid for Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce to target His Highness's family is the one who has the deepest grudge with His Highness during the palace entrance test. Their target is His Highness's family members who recently entered the myriad worlds from the Great World. Fan Shu, a fierce aura surged in Su Fong's heart. During the palace entrance test, the one who had the deepest grudge with Su Fong was naturally Fan Shu. He didn't expect her to be so deranged as to prepare to attack Su Fong's family members. If he had known this would happen, he would have killed her directly during the battle for the top 10 and would not have brought about such trouble. What surprised Su Fong was that his father and his family members and friend from the Great World had finally come to the myriad worlds. How are my family members doing now? This was what Su Fong was most worried about. Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce was the #1 chamber of commerce in the myriad worlds, so it was naturally very well informed. According to what I know, when they first came to the Great World, they were attacked by the cloudy divine realm. In the end, the experts under His Highness Su Fong destroyed the entire cloudy divine realm. Fatty Zhu's news surprised Su Fong, but on second thought, there was nothing strange about it. From the Great World to the myriad worlds, one had to pass through the cloudy divine realm, and the cloudy divine realm was a branch of Sanskrit. Attacking Su Fong's family members was normal. However, Su Fong had sent many experts to the Great World. With the realm lord of a great world, the second primordial spirit, Qing Yu, Bai Ling, and the undead lord, not to mention a small world, even a great world would be easily destroyed. Fatty Zhu continued. His Highness Su Fang's family members have not encountered any danger and are currently rushing over to the Yuan Tiangong. With the power of the Brahma Heaven God realm, it was not enough to threaten the realm lord of Hancho, the second primordial spirit, and the others, unless the peerless experts of Sanskrit in the God realm personally took action. If that happened, it would definitely alarm the Emperor realm experts. Targeting the family members of the heavenly realm Dao arenas in the Yuan Tiangong was no small matter. After confirming that his family members were safe, Su Fang's heart was immediately relieved. He then asked, "Did the person who paid Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce to take action come from the God clan?" Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce has no way of knowing, but I speculate that the God clan of that person will not know about this. The ancient God clans of the ancient God realm have always been cautious and would not go so far as to vent their anger on the family members of their enemies. Furthermore, your Highness is not an ordinary person. The consequences of targeting your family members are too severe, so the ancient God clan has no choice but to be cautious. What does Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce plan to do? Since Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce has accepted the mission, they will definitely do their best to complete it. However, out of respect for your Highness, they will delay the mission as much as possible. As for how to resolve it, that will depend on your Highness. Fatty Zhu was watertight. He did not offend Su Fang, nor did he affect Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce's reputation, as expected of a powerful figure in Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce. Then, Fatty Zhu's soul shadow's eyes shone brightly. Does your Highness really plan to take out 700,000 yuan Tiangong quotas for Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce to auction? Su Fang said decisively, "That's right. Jiang Baozhen is my friend. I have already agreed to take out 700,000 yuan Tiangong quotas for Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce to auction. However, the person presiding over the auction must be Jiang Baozhen. Your Highness Su Fang is truly generous. This king admires you. Jiang Baozhen, you have made a great contribution to Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce and will definitely be heavily rewarded by the higher-ups," Fatty Zhu said with a smile. As he nodded to Su Fang, his soul shadow disappeared without a trace. Jiang Baozhen also bid farewell to Su Fang gratefully. Su Fang settled down for a moment. Then, he did not hesitate to consume his fate and life force to use the mysterious solution of heaven's divination and the life-shrinking technique to deduce the fate of his father and the others. The mysterious solution of heaven's divination did not indicate that his father and the others were in any life-threatening danger. Only then did Su Fang completely relax. However, Su Fang still did not dare to be careless. He released the immortal blood spirit from his body. The immortal blood spirit looked like it was made of fresh blood. At this time, it already had clear facial features. However, it did not have the appearance of a human, but a demon monkey. "Master," the immortal blood spirit let out a hoarse and murderous voice. Its entire body exuded a ferocious and murderous aura. It was like a god of death. "Go and bring my family back. Even if it means death, you must protect their safety." Su Fang issued a strict order. "Yes, Master. One of my young spirits will bring the sky-breaking rainbow shuttle and the experts under my command to go with you." "Yes, Master." The immortal blood spirit was like a cold killing machine. "Your enemy, the heavenly fire divine lord, has been found. Sooner or later, I will kill him and avenge you." Heavenly fire, the immortal blood spirit's murderous aura suddenly became more than 10 times stronger. The entire 9 domains of the Green Dome sky could sense its aura. Even the Green Dome domain lord was frightened. A yang spirit entered the immortal blood spirit's body. Then, the immortal blood spirit entered the body of one of Su Fang's godly venerable realm experts and left the 9 domains of the Green Dome sky to meet up with the second primordial spirit and the domain lord of Hancha. With the second primordial spirit, it could sense each other with the yang spirit. In addition, the yang spirit could use Su Fang's divine powers. Moreover, the route from the cloudy divine realm to the Yuan Tiangong was fixed. It should not be difficult to find the second primordial spirit. The safest way to get rid of all future troubles is to kill Fan Shu. As long as Fan Shu is dead, Tong Bao Chamber of Commerce will naturally cancel the mission. How to kill Fan Shu, however, is a tricky problem. Su Fong decided to get rid of Fan Shu as soon as possible. However, it would not be easy to kill Fan Shu. Moreover, he had to consider how to deal with Sanskrit of the ancient divinity. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The identity token of the Yuan Tiangong suddenly vibrated. When he took out the token, a thought from the Yuan Tiangong expert appeared inside. Su Fong, the genius of the Heavenly Realm Dojo, please go to the Yuan Tiangong entrance in half a month. Su Fong remembered that the banquet held by Yuan Tiangong was also half a month later. He asked in surprise, "Why are you gathering the geniuses of Yuan Tiangong at this time?" The space around the entrance of Primordius Heavenly Palace will be turned into a vast star territory for those divinities who cannot enter Primordius Heavenly Palace to live in. The thoughts of the Primordius Heavenly Palace powerhouse were transmitted once more. The supreme beings of all the realms have created the Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon by imitating the Divine Sun and the Divine Moon. In half a month, they will hang in the sky to resist the power of the evil sun. Hearing this, Su Fong was shocked. The experts of all the realms were indeed generous. Not only did they create the Yuan Tiangong, but they also created a star field outside. What was even more shocking was that they could imitate the divine sun and the divine moon to refine divine weapons to resist the power of the evil sun. What kind of heaven-defying means was this? When the sun and the moon merge, the supreme power of creation will be produced, which will be of great benefit to all the gods. The Yuan Tiangong has arranged the best seats for the geniuses, and Diyu Shao Zun will be in charge of organizing it. Don't miss it. Su Fong's breathing became rapid. So this is the reason why Diyu organized the banquet. Chapter 2199. 10 days later, Su Fong sat cross-legged in the depths of the palace's formation, preparing for the banquet in a few days. Suddenly, his heart moved and he opened his eyes. A moment later, a black Xianguang appeared in front of Su Fong and entered Su Fong's divine aperture. It was his second primordial spirit. He did not expect his second primordial spirit to return so quickly. His main body merged with his second primordial spirit, and he quickly learned of his second primordial spirit's experience in the outside world. The sixth world upheaval also caused a huge disaster to the outside world. Crossing Heaven Sect also suffered a huge impact. Fortunately, before Su Fong ascended, he had already made sufficient preparations in the heaven-traversing sect. The demon race, monster race, and resurrected powerhouses of the outside world had all been dealt with. Although the heaven and earth upheaval this time had caused the heaven and earth upheaval to not be small, it was still within a bearable range. However, the other immortal realms of the outside world fell into the calamity. Countless immortal realms were destroyed. It was estimated that another upheaval would cause the entire outside world to fall into the same situation as the minor worlds. Understanding this, Su Fong's heart became heavier. This time, his second primordial spirit took away millions of people from the outside world. Su Yaotian, family Su clansman, Xianin Tian, Li Zuqing, Lord of Five Poisons, Li Haojia, and other friends and subordinates of Su Fong in the minor and major worlds. Before leaving, Yang Kai's second primordial spirit left behind more than 10 true gods in transcending Heaven Sect, including a hierarch realm master. Even if the calamity swept over transcending Heaven Sect would be safe and would not fall in a short time. However, there were also people who chose to stay in the outside world. They could not bear to leave Square Heaven Great World. Su Fong thought to himself, "The Square Heaven World is my foundation. I cannot abandon it just like that. When my inner world reaches a certain level, I will return to the Great World and place the Square Heaven Great World into my inner world, bringing it all to the myriad worlds." After leaving the outside world, because of Hanchuo Realm Lord, his second primordial spirit, and other experts, his journey from the heavens' end road to the transformation supreme Tao path was safe. However, he didn't expect to be attacked by experts the moment he arrived in the deity world. The information provided by the Tong Bao Merchant Guild wasn't entirely accurate. Sanskrit from the turbid cloud realm wasn't the only one who had attacked the realm master of Frost Shua. There were also experts from the Brahma heaven god realm, and their leader was none other than Shinja Tianjun himself. Fortunately, for some unknown reason, Shinja Tianjun's strength had dropped drastically. If not for that, Hanshua Realm Lord and the others would have been completely annihilated. The Hanshua Realm Lord, the second primordial spirit, Bai Ling, and the other big goblin's strength were not ordinary. In addition, Qing Yu had arrived in time and joined forces to defeat Shinja Tianjun and the other Sanskrit experts. In the end, Qing Yu unleashed his Kuan transformation ability in a fit of rage and swallowed the turbid cloud realm whole. Swallowing a small world in one gulp? Brother Qing Yu's strength is actually so formidable. Su Fong was first shocked by Qing Yu's strength. It seemed that everlasting life's healing of Qing Yu not only healed him completely, but also gave him a great opportunity. At this time, the Hanshua Realm Lord had already led his people toward the Yuan Tiangong. The second primordial spirit had used his void travel ability to return and report to Su Fong in advance. However, the second primordial spirit didn't meet the immortal blood spirit on the way, and he didn't know where it had gone. However, this wasn't strange. The immortal blood spirit had been absorbed into the bodies of Su Fong's experts, and they had traveled through the Stargate to the turbid cloud realm. The second primordial spirit, on the other hand, had traveled through the void. It was normal that they hadn't met. The second primordial spirit has returned at the right time. This way, we have more confidence in killing Fan Shu. Su Fong chuckled, but his eyes were filled with boundless killing intent. After that, Su Fong waited quietly for the day of the banquet to arrive. In the meantime, the news that they were outside the Yuan Tiangong's entrance and were preparing to create a starfield spread quickly and caused a huge commotion. Except for a few ancient god clans and superpowers in the ancient god realm and the god realm, all the other forces were active. Why was this? After all, those who could enter the Yuan Tiangong were few and far between. Just how many deities were there in the myriad heavens? It was impossible for all of them to enter the Yuan Tiangong. Besides, many of them couldn't afford to live there even if they got a place. The void outside the Yuan Tiangong's entrance was affected by the natural aura of heaven and earth that seeped out from the Yuan Tiangong. It would become a rare and excellent place for cultivation. Affected by the sixth upheaval, it would be difficult to attract the divine tribulation in the god realm, and it would be extremely difficult to break through to the next realm. The Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon refined by the Supreme Beings could resist the Death Qi, which was equivalent to solving this big problem. How could the gods not rush to get there? However, a newly created starfield wasn't something that anyone could occupy casually. The Yuan Tiangong had already drawn up a very detailed distribution plan, which divided the void outside the Yuan Tiangong into various forces. The venerable sovereigns who joined forces to create the Yuan Tiangong had their clansmen and forces brought into the Yuan Tiangong. Naturally, they wouldn't occupy any of the void. The void closest to the Yuan Tiangong's entrance was naturally the best. It was divided for the peerless geniuses who entered the Yuan Tiangong to settle down their clansmen and forces. Of course, these geniuses were also divided into different ranks. The best area was naturally for the top 10 geniuses, followed by the top 101,000 geniuses. Su Fong was ranked third in the palace test, so he naturally got the best spot. Su Fong was very happy when he heard this news. Now he didn't have to hurry to find a place to settle down those who couldn't be brought into the Yuan Tiangong for the time being. On the day of the banquet, Su Fong left the 9 domains of the Azure Dome sky and went straight to the Yuan Tiangong's entrance. At the entrance of the Yuan Tiangong, above the huge, illusory palace, there was a picture scroll that was 100 feet in size floating in the air. The unfolded picture scroll bloomed with dazzling light. Clouds and mist curled around it, and one could vaguely see that the picture scroll was showing a vast expanse of rivers and mountains, forests, palaces, and pavilions. It was mysterious, ethereal, and noble. The scenery was charming and gentle. There was actually a world inside this painting. Su Fong used his great perfection stage ability to sense it and found that this picture scroll was actually a half-formed divine tool. He couldn't help but marvel at the deep heritage of the imperial people. Even in the ancient god world, a half-formed divine tool was a very precious supreme treasure. Di Yuan, the young master of the imperial people, actually casually took out a half-formed divine tool to hold a banquet. The geniuses who were participating in the banquet were arriving in an endless stream. These geniuses were all dressed in bright clothes, high-spirited, and in high spirits. When they saw Su Fong, most of the geniuses came forward to greet him, and some nodded at him from afar. However, there were also some who cast unfriendly glances at Su Fong, and there was even a strong hatred in their eyes. Su Fong, Xuanxin, and Goddess Luo came together. One was holy and cold, while the other was mysterious and ethereal. Moreover, they both had peerless beauty. They immediately attracted everyone's attention, and their gazes became extremely scorching. However, when they saw the intimacy between these two peerless women and Su Fong, they were all depressed. Some were envious, and naturally, there were also people who were jealous. You relied on women to luckily enter the top 10. What's there to be arrogant about? A disdainful voice sounded. He looked over. The person who spoke was in his early 20s. He was tall and powerful and exuded a domineering aura. Su Fong glanced at this person, and the shadow of a golden dragon appeared in his eyes. This person was a peerless genius from the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan. When Su Fong entered the palace for the test, he used his dragon-subduing true body to defeat Luo Xingtian's stellar transformation, and this was known to the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan. When the test was over, the upper echelons of the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan came to visit, wanting to recruit Su Fong into the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan. The Divine Dragon Ancient Clan and the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan were not on good terms. Moreover, Su Fong had never thought of joining any of the factions, so he naturally rejected them. He did not expect the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan to bear a grudge because of this. This genius from the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan mocked Su Fong in public. "Let's go," Su Fong said to Xuanxin and Goddess Luo as he flew toward the painting. The genius from the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan had mocked Su Fong to attract everyone's attention and embarrass Su Fong in public. He did not expect Su Fong to treat him like air. He was furious. The genius from the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan snorted. "You only know how to please women. Do you really think you're a peerless genius? When you enter the Yuan Tiangong, your true colors will be revealed. You might even be kicked out of the Yuan Tiangong." I was defeated by Su Fong. If you make him sound so useless, then what am I? A piece of trash ranked in the hundreds dares to mock Su Fong, who is ranked 3rd. Tian Bao's cold voice rang out. The genius from the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan's expression changed slightly. Tian Bao had not only made it into the top 10 and displayed amazing strength, but he had also been accepted as a disciple by only Dao the Arch. This genius from the Divine Dragon Ancient Clan was only ranked in the 400s. The Divine Dragon Ancient Clan was in decline. How could he dare to offend Tian Bao? "Xuanxin, is there any movement from the upper echelons of the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan?" Su Fong asked Xuanxin telepathically. "Nothing for now, but one thing is for sure. Without my permission, they won't dare to treat me like a tool." "That's good. After this banquet, I'll go to the Divine Phoenix Ancient Clan's encampment and propose a marriage alliance to the upper echelons." Xuanxin blushed when he heard Su Fong's words, but he was very unhappy. Su Fong looked at Goddess Luo. "Goddess, where are your elders? I'll go and propose a marriage alliance in a few days." Goddess Luo's eyes flashed with surprise, but she regained her composure in the next moment. She said calmly, "We'll talk about it later." The three of them took out their invitations, which released a beam of golden light. The mist rolled and formed a passage. The three of them passed through the formation and entered the world inside the painting. They arrived at a tall mountain. There was a square at the top of the mountain. There were more than 10,000 tables and futons. Many geniuses had already taken their seats. Di Yuan sat in the main seat. Some geniuses gathered around him, all of them trying to please him. Chapter 2200. Di Yuan greeted Xuanxin and Goddess Luo in front of everyone, but ignored Su Fang. His provocation was obvious. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The geniuses didn't expect Di Yuan to target Su Fang right away. Everyone's eyes were on Su Fang. They wanted to see how he would respond. Young Master Di Yuan is a peerless talent in the universe. It's a great honor for the two beauties to be invited by him. If the two beauties can serve him together, it'll be a beautiful story in the universe. The genius of the ancient divine dragon clan shouted from behind. A sharp light flashed in Goddess Luo's deep eyes. Xuanxin's eyes were also frozen. Just a clown. Ignore him. Su Fang smiled coldly. He led Xuanxin and Goddess Luo to a seat in the back and sat down. The genius of the ancient divine dragon clan continued to provoke. Su Fang, you're a guest invited by young Master Di Yuan. How can you be so rude? The master didn't invite you, but you sat down on your own. You're just a lowly cultivator from a great world. You don't know any manners. Another provocative voice came. It was Fan Shu. No one knew what method Fan Shu used, but her body emitted a strange fragrance that suppressed the stench of the heaven-filthy thunder fruit. The ugly lightning patterns on her skin were also covered by a mask and a long robe. During the entrance test, Su Fang had severely injured Fan Shu in the last battle. Unexpectedly, Fan Shu had almost recovered in such a short time. Su Fang was amazed. As expected of Sanskrit from the ancient god world, she could recover so quickly from such a serious injury. Su Fang replied coldly, I'm here because I received an order to mingle with the Yuan Tiangong. I'm not here to attend some banquet. Besides, the master was rude first. As a guest, I don't need any manners. Some of the geniuses beside Di Yuan shouted angrily. Su Fang ignored them. He glanced at Fan Shu and closed his eyes. More than 10,000 geniuses arrived one after another. The other top 10 geniuses also arrived. The banquet soon began. Di Yuan said majestically, Ladies and gentlemen, today Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon are in the sky. This young master was asked to organize the Yuan Tiangong. Therefore, this young master has also arranged this wine party. Ladies and gentlemen, first taste the fine wine, then enjoy the supreme good fortune. Numerous geniuses took turns to propose a toast to Di Yuan, and words of flattery and flattery filled the air. QL11, as Su Fang chatted with Xuanxin and Goddess Luo, he conversed with the other geniuses who had come to propose toasts. Naturally, he didn't pay any attention to Di Yuan. After 3 rounds of wine, one of the geniuses suddenly walked up to Su Fang's table and said with a smile, During the palace entrance test, this young master and you had some misunderstandings, so this young master would like to propose a toast. Please don't refuse. This is going to be a good show. Many geniuses put down their wine cups and looked over. The genius had a vertical eye on his forehead. His gaze was sharp, and anyone who met his gaze would feel a sharp pain in their eyes. Il Woyang. Su Fang looked coldly at Il Woyang, waiting to see what tricks he wanted to play. A beautiful female attendant immediately brought over a wine cup. Il Woyang swept out a divine might and lifted up the wine cup. Then he formed a dazzling array of hand seals and poured the wine into the cup. The wine in the cup was suffused with an astonishing aura of the laws of the Grand Tao. Waves of incomparably sharp arrow chi and a terrifying aura of extermination surged within the wine cup. However, the wine cup was completely undamaged. It was originally a cup of fine wine brewed from a spiritual item of heaven and earth, but it immediately became a great weapon that contained the laws of the Grand Tao of the bow and arrow. It was enough to show that Il Woyang's strength was extraordinary, and he had the qualifications to be ranked in the top 10 of Yuan Tiangong. Unfortunately, he tried to challenge Su Fang during the battle for the top 10 and ended up humiliating himself. He was heavily injured and lost the ability to compete for the top 10. Who would have thought that he would jump out and make trouble for Su Fang during the wine banquet? This kind of toast was extremely common in the myriad worlds. It was usually done during gatherings of gods. Since it was inconvenient to fight, they would propose a toast to give the other party a difficult problem. If the other party didn't accept the challenge, then they would naturally lose face. If the other party accepted the challenge and dealt with it, then the party that proposed the toast would have no choice but to accept the opponent's counterattack. Su Fong, please drink this cup of wine. Il Woyang stared at Su Fong with a smile on his face, yet his eyes were filled with coldness. Su Fong revealed a domineering smile as he opened his mouth and suddenly inhaled. A strand of yin and yang divine might swept up the wine in the cup and directly swallowed it. Hiss, hiss, hiss. A wave of strange sounds came from Su Fong's body, and then it calmed down. He seemed to be completely unharmed. Su Fong's energy of yin and yang was a supreme energy of the Grand Tao. It was capable of fusing with any energy in the world, and it contained a myriad of Grand Tao laws. It wasn't difficult to deal with the arrow qi and the laws of the Grand Tao of the Bao, an arrow within the wine. Il Woyang's pupils constricted slightly as they flashed with astonishment. I'm not a gentleman if I don't reciprocate. I'll return the toast. Su Fong circulated his divine might to sweep up the cup of wine, and then he stretched out his hand to brush it. A ball of 9 yang divine flame that was enveloped by the energy of yin and yang fell into the cup, and it swiftly fused with the wine. Flames that seemed like liquid flowed within the cup, and it looked extremely dazzling, yet it contained an extremely domineering divine might of flames. Il Woyang revealed a fearful expression. Su Fong ridiculed, "What? You don't dare to drink?" Waves of mockery and ridicule came from the surroundings. Those that spoke up for Su Fong were naturally those geniuses of lowly birth. It's just a cup of wine. How can it scare me? Il Woyang sneered with disdain as he opened his mouth and sucked the wine into his body. Pung, 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 pung. A layer of flames emerged from Il Woyang's skin, and his entire body instantly turned completely red. Waves of muffled sounds came from within his body. That was the eruption of the 9 yang divine flame's might. Il Woyang forcefully suppressed it with his divine energy, causing a huge commotion within his body. After persisting for less than 10 breaths of time, Il Woyang finally managed to deal with the 9 yang divine flame with great difficulty, and his aura instantly became dispirited. Su Fong smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, did you drink too much? Do you need someone to help you to the latrine?" "Umph." Il Woyang snorted coldly and returned to his seat. He swallowed a pill to recover from the huge injuries within his body. Su Fong's domineering gaze swept across the crowd as he said indifferently, "Is there anyone else who wants to propose a toast to me?" His gaze fell on the genius of the Divine Dragon Clan. Even Il Woyang had suffered a great loss. This genius of the Divine Dragon Clan was far weaker than Il Woyang in terms of strength. Who would dare to try? "Let me propose a toast to you." Fan Shu shouted loudly as she walked up to Su Fong. Su Fong sneered in his heart. "I was just looking for a chance to kill you, and I didn't expect you to come to me on your own accord. This couldn't be better. Since you dared to attack my family, don't blame me, Su Fong, for being ruthless." Fan Shu reached out and took the wine cup from the maid's hand. However, she didn't use any hand seals. Instead, she took out a small jade bottle and poured out a few drops of colorless, odorless, and translucent liquid. After the liquid fell into the cup, it quickly merged with the wine. The entire cup didn't seem to have changed much. "Su Fong, if you have the guts, drink this cup of wine." Fan Shu stared at Su Fong proudly and rolled the cup towards Su Fong. Xuanqin suddenly shouted, "Be careful, that's an absolute poison." Hearing the name absolute poison, the expressions of all the geniuses changed instantly. In the demon realm, there was a creature called Absolute, which resembled a snake and was extremely poisonous. An adult Absolute could easily poison a great world to death. The absolute poison refined from the body of an Absolute was said to be able to kill an overgod master, and there was no antidote for it. Who would have thought that Fan Shu would use her absolute poison to gamble with Su Fong? Clearly, she had come prepared. "Are you afraid? My absolute poison is not as powerful as the legends say." At most, it will corrode your internal organs and make you suffer a little. If you're afraid, kowtow to me 3 times. Fan Shu gave a hideous smile. His mask was very delicate, revealing his smug expression. But as soon as Fan Shu finished speaking, Su Fong opened his mouth and sucked the poisonous wine in the cup into his body. Su Fong, you asked for it. Fan Shu laughed proudly and stared at Su Fong, intending to see Su Fong's miserable state after being poisoned. 5 breaths passed. Su Fong was safe and sound. Fan Shu's laughter came to an abrupt end. 20 breaths passed. Su Fong still looked unharmed. Fan Shu's smile froze, and a look of disbelief appeared in her eyes. Why aren't you dead? Fan Shu stammered. Su Fong licked the corner of his mouth, looking as if he hadn't had enough. Then he asked with a smile, "Do you have more?" "Another cup." He really wanted Fan Shu to have another cup. Such a strong poison was a great tonic for ghosts. Where could he find it? Could it be that Fan Shu used a fake medicine? It must be. Otherwise, how could Su Fong detoxify the absolute poison? Fan Shu is in trouble now. Let's see how he deals with Su Fong's counterattack. The geniuses nearby were shocked and began to talk among themselves. No more, Su Fong said regretfully. Then he looked at Fan Shu. It's time for me to return the favor. Fan Shu's eyes were filled with horror. Su Fong didn't use any supernatural powers. Instead, after settling down for a moment, he opened his mouth and spat out a stream of black poisonous blood, which fell into the wine cup. "Mr. Fan Shu, please drink this cup." Su Fong rolled up his long sleeves and tossed the wine cup to Fan Shu. "Poison? I, the supreme Sanskrit, have many treasures and methods to detoxify the poison. I can even suppress the absolute poison. Can your poison be more powerful than the absolute poison?" Fan Shu heaved a long sigh of relief. If Su Fong had used the same poison on Il Woyang, it would have been difficult for him to detoxify the poison. But he wasn't afraid of the strong poison. He took out a rune and crushed it. A green aura quickly enveloped him and seeped into his body. This rune was a high-level rune specially used for detoxification. No wonder he was so fearless. Then Fan Shu picked up the wine cup and drank it. The detoxification rune was indeed effective. A layer of black qi gushed out of Fan Shu's body, but it was quickly eliminated by a green aura. After nearly half an hour, Fan Shu finally detoxified the strong poison, but he seemed to have suffered a lot. But on the surface, he was very domineering. "Humph, you're lucky this time. My absolute poison is ineffective. If there's a next time, there won't be a next time." Chapter 22:01. Fan Shu detoxified Su Fong's poison wine with the help of the detoxification rune. She didn't find anything wrong with it, except that it consumed a lot of the rune's power, divine essence, and blood qi. "Stop trying to scare me. I'm not that easy to scare." Fan Shu snorted. Su Fong smiled lightly. The poison in the wine came from Gue, but Su Fong didn't want to kill Fan Shu directly. If he did, Sanskrit wouldn't let it go so easily. Su Fong's most fatal move was to fuse Gue's poison with Su Fong's blood essence. The second primordial spirit would come out of the rune and fuse with the blood essence. Fan Shu's attention was focused on detoxifying the poison, and Su Fong used the life-shrinking technique on the second primordial spirit, so Fan Shu didn't notice it. Using this method, the second primordial spirit entered Fan Shu's body. The second primordial spirit's power had long surpassed that of a divine venerable. Even if Fan Shu had a primordial spirit defensive treasure, she would die sooner or later if the second primordial spirit entered her body. Su Fong didn't expect to find a chance to kill Fan Shu so easily. He was also very surprised. He was very grateful to Il Woyang, who had jumped out to gamble with him. If there was a chance in the future, he would repay him well. Getting rid of Fan Shu was like removing a big threat to his family. Su Fong felt as if a huge rock had been lifted from his heart. As expected of a peerless genius qualified to challenge me. Di Yuan walked over and nodded. The crowd moved aside. They didn't expect Di Yuan to personally make a move. Now, there was a show to watch. Su Fong dares to be arrogant at Di Yuan's banquet. Let's see how Di Yuan will deal with him. Su Fong was able to get third place in the palace entrance test because of Huang Xuanxin and Goddess Luo. Otherwise, how could he enter the top 10? How dare he offend Di Yuan so arrogantly? He's courting death. Many geniuses from the ancient god world sneered sarcastically. Many of them were gloating. Those geniuses with lowly backgrounds were endlessly furious in their hearts. As the young master of the Di clan, Di Yuan had been targeting Su Fong since the start of the wine banquet. Personally, making a move at this time was truly going too far. Goddess Luo stood out, and her gaze became sharp. Di Yuan, I'll bet this cup of wine with you. This Xiao Zun has tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. I only know how to drink and chat merrily with women. Why would I gamble with a woman? Di Yuan smiled faintly. Then, he looked at Su Fong and smiled domineeringly. Don't worry, I'm just testing you. I don't want to kill you. Don't tell me you'll always stand behind a woman and let her shelter you from the wind and rain. Su Fong chuckled. Isn't it kind of luck to have a woman to shelter me from the wind and rain? Xuanxin and Goddess Luo couldn't help but smile. The geniuses from the ancient god world next to them all mocked and ridiculed. Those geniuses who had fought side by side with Su Fong during the Sixth Gate of Heaven test in the Pan-Hung Divine World knew what kind of person Su Fong was. In a critical moment, he wouldn't even abandon his subordinates. How could he let a woman shelter him from the wind and rain? Su Fong's eyes turned cold. How can I refuse a toast from you? Xiao Zun Di Yuan, please. To be able to reach this step from the great world, you are indeed courageous. I admire you, Di Yuan said. He reached out, and a cup of wine floated in front of him. Then, he formed a seal and fused it with the wine. This cup of wine instantly became extraordinary. It emitted a supreme heavenly Tao aura and contained a supreme heavenly Tao will. It was like a mortal emperor bestowing wine. Even if it was poisonous wine, one had to drink it respectfully. After drinking this cup of wine, one would have to submit to the emperor. I, Su Fong, am in control of my own fate. You want me, Su Fong, to submit with a mere cup of wine? Su Fong revealed a domineering smile, but there was a serious look in his eyes. He reached out and grabbed the cup of wine. As he made his move, he unleashed the power of fate. At the same time, a divine power that could destroy everything in the world surged in his palm. QL 11 Qi. 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 The heavenly Tao contained in the wine was instantly incinerated by the power of fate of the heavenly Tao life shrinking technique. Under the power of Su Fong's great Yin seal, the great Tao precepts were shattered layer by layer. Ka. Di Yuan's strength was astonishing. Although Su Fong's great Yin seal destroyed the great Tao precepts contained in the wine, some power still leaked out. Cracks appeared on the wine cup, but it didn't shatter. There was a burst of mocking laughter in the surroundings. According to the rules of wine gambling between gods, if the wine in the cup spilled out of the cup, it was considered a loss. Although Su Fong didn't count as a loss, he could only barely resolve it. Although those geniuses of the ancient god world were very clear that if they made a move, they could absolutely do what Su Fong did, it didn't affect their ridicule of Su Fong. Su Fong drank the wine in the cup in one gulp, then grabbed another wine cup. Then, Su Fong condensed 6 petals with the great Tao precepts of wood, fire, metal, earth, and thunder successively, as if they were real. The surrounding crowd let out a burst of exclamations. Being able to condense a petal meant that one had comprehended the essence of this great Tao. If it was just one of them, many geniuses were confident that they could do it. However, thoroughly comprehending the essence of all 6 great Tao was indeed somewhat shocking. Cultivating 6 types of great Tao precepts at the same time, how is this possible? Everyone felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. Di Yuan also appeared to be somewhat surprised, but it was merely a little surprise. The next moment, a surge of heavenly Tao, heavenly cycle, reincarnation, divine power erupted from Su Fong's body with a loud bang, enveloping the 6 great Tao petals. Everyone was very surprised. What is he going to do now? Di Yuan's divine light changed slightly. Flower of heavenly Tao. Su Fong gave a domineering cold cry. The heavenly Tao, yin-yang supreme divine power compressed the 6 petals into a flower that emitted resplendent multicolored light. Under the yin-yang divine power, the 6 types of great Tao perfectly fused together, multiplying and multiplying endlessly, operating in a cycle of reincarnation. Su Fong poured the flower of heavenly Tao into the wine cup and waved his hand. Young Master Di Yuan, it is impolite not to reciprocate. Please drink this cup of fine wine brewed by the flower of heavenly Tao. A rare solemn look appeared in Di Yuan's deep eyes. This was the first time that everyone saw the calm and collected Di Yuan have such an expression, including those geniuses of the ancient god world. Each and every one of them no longer looked at him with contempt. Not only did he comprehend the 6 types of natural great Tao laws to the essence, but he was also able to fuse them together. What kind of realm was this? Just like painting, Su Fang's comprehension of the great Tao laws was equivalent to mastering the most basic brush technique to an extremely proficient level. Moreover, he had mastered it through a comprehensive study. In the future, he could freely wave his brush and splash ink on the canvas and create great Tao laws and remarkable abilities. No one could achieve such a height. All the geniuses were ashamed of their inferiority. Only then did the geniuses understand. No wonder Su Fang could have such a shocking performance in the stage of comprehending the Sea of Chaos. It turned out that he had comprehended the heavenly Tao laws to such an extent. Ordained by the heavens, I control the heavens, and I control the heavens. Di Yuan executed his self-created remarkable ability, releasing a supreme divine power that controlled the heavenly Tao, augmenting his hand as he slowly grabbed the wine cup. The wine cup trembled continuously in Di Yuan's hand. Di Yuan's divine power collided violently with Su Fang's flower of heavenly Tao that had fused into the wine. Suddenly, Di Yuan's divine light changed instantly, and he swept out the wine cup with a wave of his hand. Boom! The wine cup suddenly exploded, as if a rune had been activated, and it swept out in all directions. Fortunately, the flower of heavenly Tao's power in the wine had been mostly neutralized by Di Yuan. Otherwise, someone would have been seriously injured on the spot. Even so, the surrounding geniuses were also splashed with wine. The ancient god world geniuses who were closest had their auras broken by the energy contained in the wine, and a few holes were shot in their Taoist robes. Although they were not seriously injured, they were still battered and exhausted. Di Yuan had obviously lost this round of drinking. Il Woyang and Fan Shu both looked horrified. If Su Fang had toasted them in such a way just now, they would not have just made a fool of themselves. They would definitely have been seriously injured on the spot. The genius of the ancient divine dragon clan subconsciously retreated, afraid that Su Fang would target him and give him a toast as well. It seems that I am not qualified to drink your wine. No one here is qualified to drink your toast. Su Fang, you are indeed extraordinary. You are qualified to compete with me for the #1 genius of the myriad worlds. Di Yuan's face darkened, and then he smiled faintly, as if he did not care at all, neither arrogant nor discouraged by victory. Young Master Di Yuan is indeed generous. Su Fang only knows how to use these little tricks. In terms of true strength, what right does he have to be mentioned in the same breath as young Master Di Yuan? Some of the ancient god world geniuses were very unconvinced, but no one came forward to propose a toast. What a joke. Even Di Yuan had made a fool of himself in public. Wouldn't they be asking for humiliation if they went up to propose a toast? In a while, the Shaoyang divine sun and the Shaoyin divine moon will rise into the sky. When the sun and the moon merge, a supreme fortune will descend. At the same time, it is also a kind of test for geniuses. Su Fang, let's have another round. How about it? Di Yuan then said to Su Fang. His competitive spirit had obviously been provoked. He wanted to compete with Su Fang and trample Su Fang under his feet in public. Su Fang said decisively, since young Master Di Yuan has such an interest, Su Fang will naturally not refuse. The atmosphere of the banquet became dull and oppressive. No one was in the mood to drink. They were quietly waiting for the exciting moment to arrive. About 6 hours later, Su Fong suddenly sensed something and looked up at the sky. Look, the Emperor Realm Masters have appeared. One of the geniuses suddenly shouted. Many geniuses looked up at the sky. Sure enough, in the depths of the sky, more than 30 figures appeared. Due to the distance, Su Fong could only see blurry figures even when he used his peak stage ability. However, each of these blurry figures gave off a kind of heavenly majesty. At a glance, one would feel shocked and their mind roaring, as if they were facing the supreme heavenly way. These 30 or so gods were all Emperor Realm Masters. Chapter 2202. Who is this white-robed man? I feel like he's much more powerful than an emperor. Looking up at the white-clothed expert in the sky, Su Fong was extremely shocked. He couldn't help but feel a sense of insignificance in his heart. He was like a lowly ant that was facing the heavenly Tao at this moment. The golden rainbow monarch spoke from within his body. This person should be the supreme existence of the imperial people. His strength has almost surpassed the limits of an emperor. Only such a powerhouse can use supreme divine abilities to imitate the divine sun and divine moon and recreate the universe. The arrogant golden rainbow monarch's tone was filled with reverence. He didn't even dare to say the white-robed man's name. For a supreme existence like the white-robed man, even if they were separated by countless planes of the divine realm, he would be able to sense it if his name was directly called. He didn't dare to show the slightest disrespect. Otherwise, it would bring about misfortune. The imperial people are indeed worthy of being the supreme divine race that controls the heavenly Tao. Su Fong exclaimed in his heart. He then asked the golden rainbow monarch, "Are there any supreme existences that surpass the emperor level in the heavenly Tao?" Maybe, maybe not. Golden rainbow monarch, aren't you talking nonsense? Generally speaking, supreme existences that surpass the emperor level can transcend the universe and go beyond the heavenly Tao from the exalted celestial mountain. They definitely existed in the past. As for now, I'm just a bandit. How would I know? After ending his conversation with the golden rainbow monarch, Su Fong looked up at the supreme existences in the sky. His heart was filled with reverence. This feeling was like a mortal facing a god. However, Su Fong's heart was also filled with a strong belief. One day, I will be like these emperor-level powerhouses and stand at the peak of the heavenly Tao. I can do it in the small world and the great world, so I can do it in the heavenly Tao. There will even be a day when I transcend this world and go beyond the heavenly Tao to take a look. If other geniuses knew about this thought, they would definitely mock and ridicule him. This was Su Fong. Because he had obtained great freedom in his heart, he also had unparalleled confidence. Only by believing in oneself could one reach that step. If one didn't even believe in oneself, how could one surpass others? At this moment, the supreme existence of the imperial people suddenly threw out a divine weapon. The god weapon looked like a fiery star. It slowly rose into the sky and rapidly expanded. In just the time it took an incense stick to burn, it grew from the size of a fist to 100,000 li across. Boom! Crimson flames erupted from the star, releasing thousands of blinding rays of light. It was as if a divine sun had risen into the sky. Pure yang divine power quickly swept out in all directions. Wherever the pure yang divine might went, the deathly aura that filled the air was quickly evaporated into nothingness. The evil sun energy that enveloped the heavens and earth, as well as every cultivator's heart, was suddenly weakened, suppressed, and finally disappeared. The radiance released by the Shaoyang heavenly sun extended between heaven and earth. If one stood high up in the sky, they could see the power of the heavenly sun sweeping in all directions like waves. With the entrance of Yuan Tiangong as the center, it formed a terrifying circle that could almost cover an entire galaxy. In the area covered by the divine power of the Shaoyang heavenly sun, not only was the deathly aura dispelled, but there was also a type of pure yang energy that all life needed to grow. The aura of life was boiling because of it. All the gods, whose strength had been suppressed due to the changes in heaven and earth, seemed to have been unsealed at this moment. Those gods who cultivated the great Tao of fire and the great Tao of pure yang found that not only was their divine essence boiling, but their understanding of the great Tao's laws had also suddenly become much clearer. The imperial people are mighty. Outside the entrance of Yuan Tiangong, there was a burst of loud cheers that sounded like a tsunami. As expected of a supreme existence that has almost surpassed the sovereign level, the divine weapon created can actually release divine power, similar to the divine sun. Su Fong was shocked. Then, he felt the yang energy in his body become restless, surging and howling in his yang meridian. The world tree was also trembling crazily, appearing abnormally active. Su Fong didn't hesitate to activate the 9 yang, 9 changes, wantonly absorbing the power released by the Shaoyang heavenly sun to break through the 70th meridian and strengthen the world tree. Suddenly, QL11, there was a commotion in the heaven and earth Tao palace. A wisp of primordial spirit consciousness entered the heaven and earth Tao palace. It turned out that the dragon bird had become very active after sensing the aura of the Shaoyang heavenly Sunday. It wanted to rush out of Su Fong's heaven and earth Tao palace. This is a rare opportunity. I'll let you eat to your heart's content. At this moment, the aura emitted by the Shaoyang heavenly sun was incomparably pure yang energy. Although it wasn't as pure as the real heavenly sun, it wasn't mixed with any other natural spiritual qi of heaven and earth. It was incomparably pure. Su Fong absorbed this aura and cultivated the 9 yang 9 changes. Naturally, it was twice the result with half the effort. For the dragon bird, it also had astonishing benefits. Yin alone couldn't grow, and yang alone couldn't grow. If only the Shaoyang heavenly sun was present, it could be used to resist Xie Yang. Gods also couldn't cultivate here. Next, the supreme expert of the imperial people would definitely activate the Shaoyang heavenly moon, fusing yin and yang, and then evolve into thousands of things. If he didn't take the opportunity to absorb the aura of the Shaoyang heavenly sun now, he wouldn't have the chance later. Therefore, Su Fong released the dragon bird without any hesitation. Then, he sat down cross-legged and activated the 9 yang, 9 changes, absorbing the power of the Shaoyang heavenly sun to break through the 70th yang meridian. Unfortunately, he didn't dare to take out the origin sacred mirror. If the origin sacred mirror absorbed the power of the Shaoyang heavenly sun and turned it into origin yang qi, Su Fong would benefit even more. However, with the supreme divine power of the origin sacred mirror, it was very likely that it would directly absorb the Shaoyang heavenly sun into the ancient mirror space. If that happened, it would cause a lot of trouble. Even Emperor Masters wouldn't be able to protect him. The dragon bird flew to Xuanxin's side and circled around Xuanxin. It seemed very intimate because in its eyes, Xuanxin was its mother. Then, the dragon bird rushed out of the scroll space and flew into the void, wantonly devouring the aura of the Shaoyang heavenly Sunday, seeing that Su Fong was using the Shaoyang heavenly sun to cultivate, and even released a monster that looked like a dragon and a phoenix. The geniuses were all shocked. They never thought that Su Fong could use the Shaoyang heavenly sun to cultivate. Di Yuan snorted coldly, his eyes under his sharp eyebrows, showing a look of dissatisfaction. The supreme masters of the imperial people obviously consumed a lot of energy to activate the Shaoyang heavenly Sunday. They sat cross-legged in the air and swallowed pills to recover. When they recovered to their peak state, they then activated the Shaoyang heavenly moon. For such supreme beings, a casual seclusion could last tens of millions of years. At this time, it definitely wouldn't take such a long time to recover, but it definitely wouldn't be a matter of 3 to 5 days. About a month later, Su Fong, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the dragon bird. The dragon bird stopped devouring the power of the Shaoyang heavenly sun and curled up into a ball, its body burning with an astonishing amount of sun essence fire. The dragon bird is going to transform again. Su Fong and Xuanxin sensed it and smiled at each other. They were both very happy. Another 3 months passed. Suddenly, the dragon bird suddenly opened its eyes and a light like the sun burst out from its eyes, making the surrounding light suddenly dim. Then the dragon bird stretched its body. It was more than 100 feet long, with a dragon's body, a phoenix's tail, and feathers all over its body, burning with 5-colored flames. The flaming crown on its head emitted a 5-colored halo, looking extremely dazzling. The dragon bird looked down proudly, and an aura of disdain for heaven and earth arose spontaneously. Then it let out an incomparably loud and clear cry toward the Shaoyang heavenly sun, echoing through the sky. The Shaoyang heavenly sun suddenly more than doubled in brightness, and the power of the sun it emitted also skyrocketed. Other than the supreme masters of the imperial people, the other venerable sovereigns in the sky all looked at the dragon bird. What kind of mutated divine beast is this? Its cry can actually make the Shaoyang heavenly sun more active and powerful. Increase. If this strange beast grows to a certain height, it will be the nemesis of all evil forces, especially resurrected masters. The dragon bird's cry also surprised the venerable sovereigns. Under everyone's gaze, the dragon bird flew into the inner world of the painting, into Su Fang's body, and into the Tao Palace of heaven and earth. Then it fell into a deep sleep. The dragon bird has transformed again. I wonder what new abilities it has this time. Su Fang's heart was filled with anticipation. Another half a year passed. Su Fang felt that the 70th Yang meridian that he was trying to break through was about to be formed, but he still needed some time to cultivate. At this time, the white-robed master of the imperial people finished his recovery. He looked down and said majestically, "The Shaoyang heavenly moon is about to rise into the sky. When the sun and the moon merge, a supreme power of creation will be born. This is a supreme opportunity for all of you. As for how much you can gain, it will depend on your own abilities. Do not be greedy and try to be brave. The many gods below, including the giants of the powerful forces and even the master gods, were all excited and eager to give it a try. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. How can we miss such a great opportunity? Xuanxin goddess, let's go." Su Fang transmitted his voice to Xuanxin and goddess Luo, and also flew out. The many Yuan Tiangong geniuses were right above the Yuan Tiangong entrance, where the power of the Shaoyang heavenly sun and the Shaoyang heavenly moon converged. Naturally, they would gain the greatest opportunity. Although the many experts in the outer area could not gain as much as the Yuan Tiangong geniuses, the benefits were still shocking. They all flew up. The white-robed master of the imperial people once again shot out a divine weapon. This divine weapon was like an ice wheel. It flew to 1,000,000 miles away from the Shaoyang heavenly sun and hung high in the sky, releasing a mysterious aura of extreme coldness. Two completely opposite heavenly Daos collided with a loud bang. They restrained each other and merged together, forming a shocking divine might that was the fusion of yin and yang. It descended from the sky and surged between the heavens and the earth. The power of the Shaoyang heavenly sun and the Shaoyang heavenly moon were the supreme yang and yin heavenly Daos of the world. It was exactly the same as Su Fang's 9-yang power and Shu Wanjin's 9-yin power. However, these two divine weapons were personally created by supreme existences. Although the power they released was not necessarily of a higher level or purer than the 9-yin power and 9-yang power, it was extremely vast and majestic. Chapter 22:03. The Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon were the two divine weapons. They released the power of extreme yang and yin, blending yin and yang. At that moment, Su Fang felt as if he was joining forces with Shu Wanjin to perform the yin-yang transformation, but its power was more than 10,000 times more terrifying. The power formed by the blending of yin and yang was also a kind of yin and yang energy. The yin and yang energy was the power of creation, second only to the heavenly way's origin, the chaotic energy. It surpassed the natural spiritual qi and world energy. Absorbing the yin and yang energy would be greatly beneficial to the cultivation of the world tree. the inner world would also undergo a great transformation. For other gods, the power released by the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon was also a supreme creation. That was because no matter what great path one cultivated, it could not be separated from the category of yin and yang. Absorbing the yin and yang energy would not only increase one's cultivation base, but it would also greatly benefit one's understanding of the heavenly way. Countless deities flew into the sky with all their might. That was because the closer they were to the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon, the richer and purer the yin and yang energy would be. It wouldn't rush to improve their cultivation base. However, the yin and yang energy released by the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon contained an astonishing shackling power. In addition, the yin and yang energy was difficult for gods to control. If it wasn't for the continuous flow of heaven and earth energy from the Yuan Tiangong entrance, they wouldn't even be able to fly, let alone travel through the void. Many Yuan Tiangong geniuses were eager to give it a try. However, Di Yuan didn't move, and the other geniuses didn't dare to move either. Hundreds of experts quickly overtook the geniuses and flew into the sky. Looking at these people, Di Yuan still didn't move, and the corner of his mouth curved into a disdainful smile. Suddenly, the divine body of a peak ninth heaven godly venerable realm expert who was charging at the front suddenly exploded with a bang. Even his son's spirit couldn't escape. The higher one went, the greater the power of creation, and the shackling power formed was also extremely shocking. After absorbing the yin and yang energy into the body, if one couldn't control it and merge it with the divine origin, they would only end up exploding and dying if they lost control. Then another 3 venerable ones followed closely behind, their bodies exploding as well. The other gods immediately came to their senses. Although the fortune was good, one had to be alive to take it. As a result, everyone became cautious. When they reached the limit of what they could endure, they immediately stopped and sat cross-legged in the air, absorbing the yin and yang energy and fusing it with their divine essence to increase their cultivation. Absorbing the power of yin and yang was also a test of one's overall strength. Other than one's cultivation level, it was also a test of one's cultivation level. From the positions of the deities, one could tell the strength of each of them. A small number of overgods had reached their limits when they were 10,000 kilometers away from the Shaoyang suns and Shaoyin suns. For domain lords, the limit was 100,000 miles. Any further, and it would exceed the limit of what they could bear. The rest of the gods were even further away. Those who were below the hierarch realm could not go further than the entrance of Yuan Tiangong. Di Yuan slowly flew into the sky. The other geniuses also followed one after another. Although each and every one of them was impatient in their hearts, no one dared to surpass Di Yuan. Il Woyang looked at Su Fong and shouted coldly in a domineering manner, "Su Fong, this young master lost to you during the palace entrance test, and I refuse to accept it. This time, you and I will compete again. Let's see who can reach the highest altitude. Do you dare to accept the challenge?" Fan Shu also shouted loudly, "Su Fong, if you have the ability, then compete with us. Don't always hide behind women." Su Fong smiled faintly and ignored Il Woyang and Fan Shu. He said to Xuanxin and Goddess Luo, Let's go up together." The 3 of them flew into the sky side by side. "Su Fong, although this young master lost to you during the palace entrance test, it doesn't mean that my strength is inferior to yours. This time, this young master will let everyone see that your 3rd place was only obtained by relying on women. It's just an undeserved reputation." Il Woyang laughed wildly. His figure flashed and shot into the sky like an arrow. Soon, he overtook many geniuses. Fan Shu smiled coldly at Su Fong and flew into the sky. Su Fong, Xuanxin, and Goddess Luo flew side by side at a steady pace. Soon, they were left behind. After 5 minutes, some geniuses couldn't take it anymore. They had to stop and cultivate on the spot. The higher one went, the more opportunities there were. However, it also meant that it would be more difficult and dangerous. Geniuses continued to stop. First, it was the geniuses who were ranked below 10,000. Then it was the geniuses in the top 1,000. In the end, the geniuses in the top 100 also stopped. Fan Shu was one of them. Only the geniuses in the top 10 and a small number of geniuses in the top 100 continued to fly upwards. Su Fong, Xuanxin, and Goddess Luo flew past the geniuses as if they were taking a stroll in the park. This time, Buji held his breath and rushed to where most of the geniuses in the top 1,000 were. Then, he stopped to rest and prepare to continue upwards. Buji may not be in the top 10, but my strength is enough to be in the top 100 of the Yuan Tiangong geniuses. However, my strength was ruined by this lowly ant, Su Fong. This time, I'll definitely soar into the sky and let everyone see. Buji unleashed the power of the great Tao of Yin and Yang. His body suddenly soared. In one breath, he flew more than 10,000 miles and finally reached his limit. Looking around, Buji saw all the geniuses in the top 100. He couldn't help but roar. Who knew QL11? Before he could be happy for long, Su Fong, Xuanxin, and Goddess Luo passed by him and quickly left it behind. Su Fong. Buji's eyes shone with hatred. Then, they dimmed and turned into powerlessness and dispiritedness. Even the patriarch of the Yin tribe personally apologized to Su Fong. How would he dare to provoke Su Fong again? Seeing Su Fong's calm expression, Buji finally realized the difference between him and Su Fong. If he continued to provoke Su Fong, he would be courting death. That genius of the ancient Divine Dragon clan used the talent of the ancient Divine Dragon clan and his strong physical body to rush into the top 100. He even surpassed Fan Shu by more than 100 miles. Fan Shu was unconvinced. Just as she was about to catch up with the genius of the ancient Divine Dragon clan, Su Fong passed by her with his 2 cultivation partners. Su Fong looked back and smiled disdainfully at Fan Shu. Then, he quickly passed the geniuses in the top 100. Damn it, you lowly ant. How dare you laugh at me? Fan Shu was furious. She unleashed her cultivation and rushed up without caring about anything else. After moving up by more than 100 miles, Fan Shu spat out blood. Her divine body started to crack. Even her immortal abode and immortal aperture showed signs of instability. Fan Shu was scared out of her wits. The anger in her heart instantly disappeared. She hurriedly stopped and swallowed pills. As she recovered, she refined the power of Yin and Yang in her body. Suddenly, Fan Shu's body trembled. Her masked face revealed a clear expression of fear and pain. It turned out that when Fan Shu's immortal abode and immortal aperture were being attacked by the power of Yin and Yang, and she was trying her best to stabilize them, her second primordial spirit, which had snuck in her body during the drinking game at the banquet, directly entered the sea of immortal apertures. Fan Shu, the second primordial spirit, suddenly condensed into a figure. Where did you come from? How dare you live in my immortal aperture? Strange. Why does your voice sound so familiar? Fan Shu's yang spirit was draped in a golden gauze robe. It looked majestic and domineering. No wonder she was a genius of the ancient divine world. She had a primordial spirit dharma treasure, and its grade was not low. It was at the peak of the supreme grade. Primordial spirit dharma treasures were very precious. Chapter 2204. Fan Shu's second primordial spirit had successfully taken over her body. However, this was not the end of the matter. The most troublesome part was how to prevent the Sanskrit powerhouses from finding out about Su Fong. The upper echelons of the ancient god world's Brahmin clan, as well as the venerable sovereigns of the Brahmin clan, were all present at the moment. With the strength of the venerable sovereigns, they could easily reverse time or find out the truth from the remnant aura. Once they found out about Su Fong, Sovereign Su Fong would not be able to protect him even if he wanted to. The second primordial spirit merged a wisp of primordial spirit consciousness into Fan Shu's unconscious yang spirit, then quickly left Fan Shu's divine aperture ocean and returned to Su Fong's body. At this time, everyone was focused on the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon in the sky. Even the over-god powerhouses were trying their best to absorb the yin and yang energy, so naturally, no one was paying attention to Fan Shu. The sovereigns of Sanskrit would never have thought that a genius from Sanskrit would be taken over right under his nose. Moreover, as a sovereigns, no matter how bored they were, they would not constantly pay attention to a junior, so they did not notice anything unusual. About the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Fan Shu suddenly looked at the genius of the Divine Dragon Clan not far away and roared, "How dare you look down on me, Divine Dragon Clan? You're courting death." After that, he charged toward the genius of the Divine Dragon Clan. The genius of the Divine Dragon Clan was baffled. At this time, the Divine Dragon Clan was in decline and could not afford to offend Sanskrit, so he had to swallow his anger and argue loudly. "Master Fan Shu, I didn't even look at you. How'd I look down on you? This young master is right in front of you, and you dare not even look at me? This is the greatest contempt for this young master. See if this young master doesn't suppress you." Fan Shu formed a seal and attacked the genius of the Divine Dragon Clan. Some of the nearby geniuses all said that Fan Shu was overbearing, but no one stepped forward to stop him. "Mr. Fan Shu, I've never offended you, and I've always tried to please you, but you turned against me. Don't go too far." The ancient Divine Dragon Clan had always been arrogant. Being bullied by Fan Shu in such a domineering manner, the ancient Divine Dragon Clan prodigy was furious. He unleashed the ancient Divine Dragon Clan's most powerful superpower to fight Fan Shu. However, the prodigy of the ancient Divine Dragon Clan was far weaker than Fan Shu, and Fan Shu seemed to be fighting with her life on the line. The prodigy of the ancient Divine Dragon Clan had no choice but to flee. "Di Yuan, this young master will definitely surpass you this time and become the #1 Yuan Tiangong genius." Fan Shu displayed her domineering aura and flew into the sky. His speed was extremely fast, and he quickly surpassed the geniuses ranked in the top 100 and caught up with those ranked in the top 10. This height had already surpassed Fan Shu's limit. Under the tremendous pressure and the terrifying shackles, his divine body was constantly shattering. His divine dwellings and divine apertures were also on the verge of collapse. However, his aura was like a rainbow. At this moment, Fan Shu attracted everyone's attention. Everyone was shocked and looked at Fan Shu in a new light. Even Di Yuan steadied himself and looked down at Fan Shu with raised eyebrows. Fan Shu's performance was obviously far beyond his expectations. The venerable sovereigns in the sky were also alarmed. After discovering that such a dazzling prodigy was from the Sanskrit sect, one of the venerable sovereigns said to the Sanskrit sect's venerable sovereign, "This young man is a Sanskrit prodigy, right? I didn't expect him to be so extraordinary. In terms of strength, compared to Di Yuan, there's still a big gap. However, in terms of courage and Taoist heart, the juniors of my clan are not inferior to anyone." Sanskrit responded humbly. His face was full of smiles, and there was undisguised pride in his eyes. Fan Shu's outstanding performance in front of so many venerable sovereigns naturally made him, the Sanskrit sect's venerable sovereign, proud. "Young Master Fan Shu is amazing. The peerless prodigy of our clan will definitely soar into the sky this time and suppress everyone with his peerless brilliance. How could Fan Shu be squeezed out of the top 10 if he wasn't framed by a villain and entered the palace to take the test in Yuan Tiangong? Fan Shu definitely has the strength to be in the top 10 or even the top 5. Many of the higher-ups and experts of Sanskrit were so happy to see Fan Shu's performance that they even forgot to cultivate. They looked at Fan Shu from afar and praised him loudly. Fan Shu seemed to be even more excited. He suddenly sped up and quickly overtook Su Fong to catch up with Luo Xingtian. "Fan Shu, are you crazy? Stop right now, or you will die." Luo Xingtian sensed that something was wrong and shouted at Fan Shu. "Luo Xingtian, how dare you humiliate me? Die!" Fan Shu pounced on Luo Xingtian like a mad beast. Luo Xingtian's divine light changed instantly, and he hurriedly tried to dodge. Suddenly, Fan Shu's divine body exploded, and a terrifying energy swept out and hit Luo Xingtian, sending him flying. He was immediately seriously injured and fell down. Everyone was dumbfounded. The Sanskrit people's praise for Fan Shu was still echoing in the air, but everyone had turned into ice statues. Just as Fan Shu's body exploded, life shrinking art cut off the aura of fate. Heaven's mystery solution. Mess up the heaven's mystery solution. Su Fong didn't hesitate to use the life shrinking art and the heaven's mystery solution. The power of the life shrinking art immediately cut off the karma between Su Fong and Fan Shu. The remaining primordial spirit in Fan Shu's divine aperture was also completely wiped out. The power of the heaven's mystery solution messed up the heaven's mystery solution, making it impossible to infer the heaven's mystery solution. Whoosh, a primordial spirit appeared at the spot where Fan Shu exploded. It was the angry Di-Zun of Sanskrit. Fan Shu was the top genius of Sanskrit, and now she had died right under the nose of the Di-Zun of Sanskrit. One could imagine how shocked and angry he was. He had to get to the bottom of this no matter what. Who was trying to harm the geniuses of my race? No matter who you are, this Di-Zun will find you, pull out your tendons, and skin you alive. After all, he was a Di-Zun. He immediately figured out that something was wrong and roared angrily. Then he reached out and made a grabbing motion in the direction Fan Shu had just passed. Time and space twisted, and the previous scene quickly appeared. From Fan Shu's sudden attack on the genius of the ancient divine dragon clan to her explosion and death, there was nothing unusual about the whole process. If there was anything unusual, it would be Fan Shu's behavior today. First, she attacked the genius of the ancient divine dragon clan. Then she attacked Luo Xingtian. Has Fan Shu gone crazy? Impossible. This Di-Zun doesn't believe that our genius would go crazy for no reason. The Di-Zun of Sanskrit snorted and released a burst of primordial spirit power to sense Fan Shu's remaining aura, trying to find clues from it. How powerful was a Di-Zun? After a while, the Di-Zun of Sanskrit found some clues from Fan Shu's aura. Sure enough, there's something wrong. The Di-Zun of Sanskrit's primordial spirit erupted with a murderous aura. Fortunately, he hadn't lost his mind and suppressed his primordial spirit power to a certain range. Otherwise, apart from the Di-Zun, even the over-gods in the sky would be affected, let alone the geniuses of the Yuan Tiangong. I don't know if my life-shrinking technique can escape the senses of a Di-Zun. Su Fong suddenly became nervous, and a chill seeped from the back of his heart. The Di-Zun of Sanskrit carefully sensed and then made a deduction. He was shocked to find that there was an invisible force in the unseen world that had erased the karma of fate. The heavenly secrets were in chaos, and he couldn't deduce anything at all. It can even block this Di-Zun's detection and deduction. Who was this person? The Di-Zun of Sanskrit was shocked. The eyes of the primordial spirit shot out an invisible gaze, and he instantly sensed the area around the entrance of the Yuan Tiangong. The result was still disappointing. It must be that brat from the Divine Dragon Clan and that brat from the Luo clan. They must have done something. Otherwise, why would Fan Shu attack them? The Di-Zun of Sanskrit snorted inexplicably. He grabbed at the air, and an invisible force pulled the genius of the Divine Dragon Clan and Luo Xingtian over. Both of them were peerless geniuses of the Yuan Tiangong, but in the face of a Di-Zun, they were like weak chickens, unable to resist at all. This Di-Zun would like to see what you two did to my clan's genius to cause his death. The Di-Zun of Sanskrit was ruthless. He was about to use the power of his primordial spirit to search their souls. Stop! Di-Zun, are you trying to start a war between the Di-Zun and Luo clans? Two angry roars rang out, and then two figures broke through the air. One of them was an old man in a starry robe. He was a Di-Zun expert from the Luo clan. QL11, the other, was a middle-aged man in a golden robe. Dragon Chi rolled around his body. Although he was not as strong as a Di-Zun expert, he was not far from it. He was the strongest person of the Divine Dragon clan. The Di-Zun expert from the Luo clan shouted angrily, Di-Zun, your Sanskrit genius went crazy for no reason and attacked my Luo clan's genius. Now you want to search my clan's genius soul? Sanskrit is really overbearing. How dare you search my clan's genius soul? This Dizun will fight you to the death. The Dizun expert from the Divine Dragon clan roared. Dizun, although my clan has declined, we are not pushovers. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. At this moment, the majestic voice of the Dizun expert in white came from the sky. Dizun, you've gone too far. The supreme existence of the Dizun had spoken, and the Sanskrit Dizun did not dare to fall out with the Luo clan and the Divine Dragon clan, so they could only give up. The Dizun expert from the Luo clan and the Dizun expert from the Divine Dragon clan were furious. With a cold snort, they each took Luo Xingtian and the Dizun expert away. This time, Sanskrit, the Luo clan, and the Divine Dragon clan were at odds with each other. No matter who you are, this Dizun will find out who you are one day. When that time comes, this Dizun will make you suffer a fate worse than death. The cold voice of the Sanskrit Dizun expert reverberated between heaven and earth. Everyone below the Dizun level trembled in fear. They'll have to wait until you find me. Su Fong sneered in his heart. Su Fong had full confidence in the heavenly secret life contraction technique and the heavenly divination unravel. The Tong Bao Chamber Commerce would not leak this information to the Sanskrit Dizun expert. Chapter 2205. Fan Shu's identity was quite extraordinary. In terms of cultivation talent and strength, she was ranked in the top 100 among more than 10,000 yuan Tiangong geniuses, and she was very close to the top 10. But now, she went crazy for no reason and attacked the geniuses of the ancient Divine Dragon clan and Luo Tianxing. In the end, she exploded and died, almost causing a conflict between the venerable sovereigns. The whole thing was very strange. Many geniuses were shocked, and, at the same time, they were wondering who the real culprit was. In Buji looked at Su Fong's figure from afar. Although Su Fong looked very calm, In Buji, who had suffered a great loss at Su Fong's hands, could guess some clues. Fan Shu's death must have something to do with Su Fong. If the imperial people are informed, In Buji's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. But when he thought of Su Fong's methods and the fact that he didn't have any solid evidence, In Buji became a little hesitant. After the storm of Fan Shu's death, many geniuses quickly focused their attention on absorbing the power of Yin and Yang to obtain opportunities. Although the imperial people's white-robed master didn't say how long the power released by the fusion of the Shaoyang Divine Sun and the Shining Divine Moon would last, many geniuses knew very well that the venerable sovereigns had spent so much effort to create a star field, so they definitely wouldn't let these geniuses absorb the power of Yin and Yang endlessly. Soon, everyone forgot about Fan Shu's death. Most of the geniuses stopped and sat cross-legged in the air, absorbing the power of Yin and Yang. Only the top 10 geniuses could continue to move forward. There were very few geniuses in the top 100. The top 10 geniuses in the entrance test began to compete with each other. They were no longer competing for opportunities, but for rankings. With so many venerable sovereigns and the supreme existence of the imperial people watching, who wouldn't want to do their best? QL11, even Di Yuan was no exception. He wanted to use his own formidable strength to prove to everyone that not only was he worthy of being number one, he also possessed an absolute advantage that all geniuses looked up to. Il Woyang had been kicked out of the top 10 by Su Fong during the palace entrance examination. At this time, he even used all of his skills to prove to everyone that he was a world-shocking talent. Not only did he surpass all of the top 100 geniuses, he even surpassed Shifeng, Qiangang, Geng Zhao, and a few other geniuses who were ranked at the bottom. He formed the second echelon, and there was only one person in the first echelon. Naturally, it was Di Yuan. Su Fong, Xuanxin, and Goddess Luo ran side by side, gradually catching up to the second group. The distance between them and the Shaoyang Godly Sun and Shaoyin Godly Moon was more than 100,000 li. It had already surpassed the Great Domain Lord Realm. Although it was still some distance away from the Domain Lord Realm, it was still beyond the peak Hierarch Realm. In the second echelon, there was finally someone who couldn't take another step forward and stop cultivating. Then, it was Shifeng, Qimian, Qiangang, and the others. They reached their limits one after another and stopped on the spot. Being able to reach this height was enough to prove their strength. If they continued, they might follow Fan Shu's footsteps. Xuanxin and Su Fong cultivated yin and yang dual cultivation. Their bodies already contained the power of yin and yang. Therefore, the yin and yang power released by the Shaoyang godly sun and Shaoyin godly moon had a much weaker effect on her compared to the other geniuses. Therefore, Xuanxin was able to keep up with Su Fong's footsteps and surpass Shifeng and the others. Goddess Luo was a monster. The shocking power that shackled the other geniuses didn't hinder her at all. It was as if she had transcended heaven and earth. Even heaven and earth and the universe couldn't shackle her. The height that she could reach in the end was probably not even comparable to Di Yuan. There weren't many geniuses in the top 10 who were close to the domain Lord realm. Di Yuan was still far ahead. Behind him were only Tian Bao, Chu Bingyan, and Il Woyang. Tian Bao's divine body was incomparably strong, so his performance this time was exceptionally shocking. Chu Bingyan and Il Woyang's performances were also stunning due to the techniques and abilities they cultivated. Xuanxin couldn't hold on any longer. Her face turned pale, and her body trembled. "Let's stop here." Su Fong hurriedly stopped. Goddess Luo stopped as well. Actually, no matter where they absorbed the power of yin and yang, it didn't make much of a difference to them. As for the ranking, they didn't care. The height that the three of them had reached was close to the domain Lord realm. They were already considered outstanding. Under the radiance of the Shaoyang godly sun and Shaoyin godly moon, their figures were clearly seen by the many gods below. They exclaimed in surprise, "Su Fong, you can't even compare to me. What right do you have to be in the top 10? If you have the guts, compete with me." Il Woyang shouted coldly, full of disdain. Su Fong couldn't be bothered with Il Woyang. He closed his eyes and began to absorb the power of yin and yang. Il Woyang mocked, "What, don't you have the guts? Today is enough to prove that your top 10 was only obtained by relying on women." Su Fong chuckled. "You make me sound so useless. You're my defeated opponent. Then what are you?" Il Woyang was instantly speechless. He was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. At this moment, Di Yuan's voice came from the sky. "Su Fong, bring out your full strength. Let me see how big the gap is between you and me." "Young Master Di Yuan, if you want to show off, that's your problem." "I, Su Fong, won't accompany you," Su Fong replied coldly. How could he not understand Di Yuan's intentions? He wanted to use this opportunity to take revenge for losing to Su Fong at the banquet. At this moment, Su Fong could be considered to have seen through it. Di Yuan looked very magnanimous. That was because he had pride in his bones. He didn't take any prodigies seriously. Naturally, it was difficult to anger him. In reality, Di Yuan was very narrow-minded. He would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. He was no different from other prodigies. Su Fong disdained to compare himself with such a person. If he wasn't born in the imperial people and had outstanding talent, it would be impossible for him to reach such heights. Di Yuan looked down at Su Fong. "Do you not want to? Or do you not dare?" Next, an aura of looking down on the world spontaneously rose from Di Yuan. "Whether you don't want to or don't dare, you have to compete with me. Otherwise, I'll let the imperial people come forward and propose marriage to the divine Phoenix clan." Su Fong exploded with a thunderous roar. "Di Yuan, how dare you?" Xuanxin's eyes instantly froze. An icy aura swept out, and his voice became incomparably sharp. "Di Yuan, you're shameless." Goddess Luo shouted angrily. "Di Yuan, I thought you were a peerless figure. I didn't expect you to be so despicable." Di Yuan snorted arrogantly. "The Divine Phoenix clan took the initiative to propose marriage to my clan. I'm just complying with their request. Why wouldn't I dare? How can I be shameless and despicable?" Il Woyang took the opportunity to add insult to injury. "Su Fong, you can't even protect your Dao companion. What face do you have to live in this world? If Phoenix, Xuanxin, and Di Yuan become Dao companions, that would be a beautiful story in the entire universe." "Ha ha! Di Yuan, You're nothing more than borrowing the power of the imperial people to humiliate me. Since you want to compete with me, then I, Su Fong, will ruthlessly trample you under my feet." A strong sense of humiliation surged in Su Fong's heart. A strong wave of resentment and anger surged into the sky. Then, he slowly stood up. Di Yuan's disdainful eyes were filled with disdain. Yi Luoyang sneered. "Su Fong, you can't even compare to me, and you still want to trample Di Yuan under your feet. You're really overestimating yourself. Laughable to the extreme." "What a clown." Su Fong frowned and glanced coldly at Yi Luoyang. "Su Anxin, you can cultivate here at ease. Watch me vent your anger for you." Su Fong revealed a lofty and domineering aura. The divine might of yin and yang erupted from his body with a bang, and his figure suddenly rose up. After 5 or 6 breaths of time, Su Fong surpassed Chu Bingyin, then Tian Bao, and then Yi Luoyang. Yi Luoyang mocked. "You're just barely able to keep up with my footsteps. You want to surpass young Master Di Yuan?" Swoosh! Yi Luoyang erupted with a divine might that tore through the heavens and the earth. His figure was like an arrow, and he instantly tossed Su Fong over 1,000 kilometers away. Whoosh! Su Fong maintained a constant speed as he chased behind. Although he wasn't as fast as Yi Luoyang, he was absolutely not slow. At this moment, Yi Luoyang felt the pressure. He gritted his teeth and erupted with his aura, once again pulling apart the distance between him and Su Fong. Unexpectedly, Su Fong was still unhurried, and he quickly caught up again. Just like this, the time for an incense stick to burn past. "Let's see how you'll surpass me this time." Yi Luoyang erupted with power once more, and he wasn't far from the height that only region lords could reach. This was already Yi Luoyang's limit. His entire body was trembling, and he was practically unable to stabilize his figure. However, his face was filled with arrogance and domineering aura. A God Exalt realm true God was able to reach such heights, and it was sufficient to look down on all geniuses. Su Fong's speed had clearly slowed down greatly, and he seemed to be an arrow at the end of its flight. Yi Luoyang couldn't help but laugh complacently. "Su Fong, if it wasn't for your divine ability surpassing mine in the palace entrance test, and the woman standing up for you, how could you possibly be ranked in the top 10? Aren't you still beneath my feet now?" Su Fong revealed a resolute and ruthless expression. His figure suddenly sped up, and he actually surpassed Yi Luoyang by over 30 m in an instant. However, he staggered and seemed to be on the verge of collapse. The bones and flesh within his body emitted cracking sounds. Obviously, he'd already surpassed his limits. "Yi Luoyang, why aren't you laughing?" Su Fong glanced at Yi Luoyang with disdain, and then he prepared to sit down cross-legged. "Surpass me? Don't even think about it." Yi Luoyang gritted his teeth and erupted with his cultivation, and his figure suddenly shot up 300 m into the air and surpassed Su Fong. Pooh! Yi Luoyang was injured by the force of the shackles, and a mouthful of blood sprayed from his mouth. "Yi Luoyang, you can't surpass me, Su Fong." Su Fong shot up into the sky once more, and he just happened to surpass Yi Luoyang by 30 m this time. Crack! 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 The sound of bones cracking resounded from Su Fong's body, and his aura seemed to become chaotic and turbulent. He might lose control at any moment and explode like Fan Shu in the end. However, he looked down at Yi Luoyang and ridiculed without restraint. "Trash! I was able to defeat you during the palace entrance test, and I could trample you beneath my feet this time as well." Shameless boasting. Yi Luoyang was completely infuriated. Moreover, as far as he was concerned, he only needed to ascend by 30 m more to surpass Su Fong, and Su Fong would absolutely not be able to ascend any further. Thereupon, Yi Luoyang erupted with all his strength as he strode up into the sky. It felt like he was climbing a tall mountain, and he finally ascended by 30 m with great difficulty before he was powerless to take another step forward. Chapter 2206. The chase between Su Fong and Yi Luoyang attracted the attention of countless people, including the Emperor Masters high up in the sky. They also projected their sensing power to observe the performance of the two, as expected of a peerless genius who entered the Yuan Tiangong. His cultivation is only at the hierarch realm, yet he is able to overcome the shackles of the power of the Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon to almost catch up with the Domain Lord. Not bad. This genius, named Su Fong, will at least become a Domain Lord in the future. If nothing unexpected happens, it is not impossible for him to become an overgod. This little guy from the Yi clan has performed even better this time. It is really a pity that he was squeezed out of the top 10 in the palace entrance test. Many Emperor Masters nodded. The performance of Su Fong and Yi Luoyang could be said to be shocking, but in their eyes, it was only not bad. The universe was vast, and geniuses came forth in large numbers. In the past, there have been countless peerless geniuses who were more dazzling than the geniuses selected from the Yuan Tiangong. But how many of them had truly reached the peak? Talent was talent, but it was just a possibility to become a master. However, the Great Tao was difficult, and no one could guarantee what level they would reach in the end. These Emperor Masters could be said to be the top existences in the universe. What kind of genius had they not seen before? Therefore, in their eyes, including Di Yuan, these geniuses could only be considered not bad. Hearing some Emperor Masters praising Luoyang, a thin old man in a green robe showed a complacent look in his eyes. This person was the Emperor Master of the Yi clan, known as Emperor Yi. Just as he was about to say a few words of modesty, Emperor Yi's divine light suddenly changed slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, Xian Guang swept out, traversing hundreds of thousands of miles in an instant, enveloping Luoyang and then quickly seeping into his body. Luoyang's divine body, which was on the verge of collapse, stabilized. He had narrowly escaped death, but his eyes were still filled with lingering fear. But when he looked down at Su Fong, he revealed a domineering smile instead. No matter what, this young master has finally surpassed you, and it's sufficient to prove to everyone that I, Luoyang, possess the strength to be ranked in the top 10. You've indeed proven that you have the strength to be ranked in the top 10. However, Su Fong's voice that was filled with ridicule sounded out. However, I can also prove that before me, Su Fong, you, Luoyang, will always be a failure, clown. The next moment, an aura surged into the sky as Su Fong's figure soared into the sky, instantly surpassing Luoyang. This time, it wasn't 100 feet, but 10 miles, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, until it reached 10,000 miles. Whoosh! Su Fong was like a blazing sun rising into the sky, causing an uproar. Only now did Luoyang come to a sudden understanding. He'd been played like a monkey by Su Fong earlier. Su Fong acted as if he couldn't continue anymore. Clearly, he wanted to trap him and lead him to death step by step. If it wasn't for Emperor Yi personally saving him, even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured. A kind of humiliation and anger from being tricked surged out from the bottom of Luoyang's heart like a tidal wave. He couldn't help but spurt out another mouthful of blood. He stared at Su Fong intently as he gritted his teeth. However, when he saw Su Fong's figure flying straight to the 9 heavens, Luoyang's confidence was greatly damaged. A thick layer of shadow was cast over his Dao heart, and it would eventually turn into an inner demon. The numerous geniuses below, as well as many gods in the distance, felt a chill run down their spines. Buji's eyes were filled with fear. Su Fong is actually so ruthless. He almost killed Luoyang unknowingly. The old ancestor is right. I definitely can't make him my enemy. Otherwise, I'll die sooner or later. Even if I saw Su Fong kill Fan Shu with my own eyes, I definitely can't reveal anything. Under the shock and fear, Buji completely dispelled the idea of revealing the secret to Sanskrit. Moreover, he decided in his heart that if he saw Su Fong in the future, he would definitely take a 10,000 miles detour and never appear in his sight. High up in the sky, this kid is so ruthless. He's quite a character. The venerable sovereign of the Yi clan snorted inexplicably. A sharp light flashed in his originally cloudy eyes. I've heard that this kid is a cultivator who ascended from a great world. Before he ascended to the divine world, this kid dominated a great world and killed countless people. How could such a cultivator who ascended from a great world not be ruthless? Even the G people almost died in his hands. It's obvious that he's not an ordinary genius. The venerable sovereign of the Sanskrit said indifferently. He actually knew everything about Su Fong. Some peerless geniuses don't know how to restrain themselves. They're arrogant and wild, and in the end, they die prematurely. This kid better not follow the same path as those geniuses who died prematurely. The venerable sovereign of the E clan sneered. If he doesn't have any edge, how can he still be called a genius? The venerable sovereign of the Seng Chiu clan spoke at this time. With me as his Tao protector, he definitely won't die prematurely. The venerable sovereign of the Sanskrit clan and emperor, he both remained silent. The venerable sovereign of the Tao protector transmitted his voice to the venerable sovereign of the Sang Chiu clan. Sang Chiu, since you value Su Fong so much, why don't you come out and take him as your disciple? The venerable sovereign of the Sang Chiu clan smiled and replied, "You're in a hurry to take in a unique disciple. Do you think I'll do the same as you? Although a heavenly treasure is extraordinary, how can it compare to Su Fong? Back when we were still taking the palace entrance test, I asked you for him, but you refused. Why are you ignoring him now? The Fan and E clans have already begun to set their sights on Su Fong. He'll be fine if he stays in the Yuan Tiangong. But if he leaves the Yuan Tiangong, he'll be in great danger. How can he show his edge without being sharpened? Aren't you afraid that you'll end up destroying him if you sharpen him too much? Then I can only say that I've misjudged him." Just as the venerable sovereigns were discussing Su Fong had already risen to within 100,000 miles of the Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon. This distance was a height that only area lords could reach. Such an amazing performance left the peerless geniuses below in the dust. Those geniuses who were trying to surpass Su Fong were even more frustrated. The other experts who were paying attention to Su Fong were also amazed. Some even found it unbelievable and believed that Su Fong had used a magic treasure. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as Su Fong stepped into the 100,000-mile range, he felt the shackles suddenly become 10 times stronger. Even Su Fong's perfect realm body couldn't withstand such terrifying pressure. Cracks appeared on his body, and blood seeped out of his cracked skin. He sat down cross-legged on the ground and stopped using his divine power to resist. Instead, he drew the surrounding yin and yang energy into his body for the world tree to absorb. The yin and yang energy was the power of creation. As long as it was a living being, it could be absorbed. Even some special substances could absorb it. QL11, Su Fong's world tree, didn't just contain the power of the world. It also contained the yin and yang energy of the world. It was the same type of energy as the yin and yang energy formed by the fusion of a Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon. After the yin and yang energy was absorbed by the world tree, it immediately trembled violently. Cracks appeared on the thick trunk, and the branches formed by the true body's physique were constantly shattering. Even the heavenly Tao flower at the top of the tree was constantly expanding. It was during this shattering and expansion that the world tree began to grow and transform wildly. The world tree then poured the yin and yang energy into the yang meridian. The yin-yang Tao, will formed by the 69 yang meridians, began to vibrate violently. Thus, Su Fong began to cultivate the 9 yang, 9 transformations to break through the 70th meridian, as he had absorbed the pure yang energy of the Shaoyang Divine Sun. And now he had absorbed so much yin and yang energy. Su Fong's yang meridian was even deeper, and his yang energy was even more vast. It was estimated that this yang meridian was about to be completed. Furthermore, this yang meridian didn't need any opportunities of creation. The yin and yang energy released by the 2 divine artifacts, the Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon, was a kind of supreme creation. It surpassed any spiritual item of heaven and earth except for creation's spiritual items. As the energy in Su Fang's body circulated, every corner of Su Fang's body was filled with the power of yin and yang. At the same time, it fused with the yin and yang energy that seeped in from the outside, cleansing Su Fang's divine body. Layers of impurities constantly seeped out. As the yang energy in the world tree and yang meridian increased, it meant that the world in Su Fang's body had also undergone a drastic change. This change didn't just mean that the energy in the small world in his body had become more vast and its surface area had become wider. It also caused a change in his realm. After stepping into the seventh transformation, Su Fang's small world seemed to have been split into yin and yang. This was the true essence of the yin-yang transformation. At this moment, after absorbing the vast yin and yang energy, it caused the world in his body to transform from yin and yang to a higher level. As for what exactly it was, Su Fang wasn't too sure for the time being. However, one thing was certain. As long as the 9 transformations reached the 8th transformation, the power of creation he obtained this time would cause the transformation of the world in his body to be even more astonishing. Hiss! Hiss! The Xianwang 6 paths pagoda doors were all open. It was also crazily absorbing the yin and yang energy. The yin and yang energy could even absorb matter, let alone Su Fang's natal magic treasure. The pagoda that Su Fang had placed in his body to nourish was also absorbing Su Fang's yang energy and yin and yang energy, allowing Su Fang to further fuse with his natal magic treasure. At the same time, it also accelerated the rapid growth of his natal magic treasure. At this moment, Su Fang looked like a huge black hole from afar. He was constantly devouring the surrounding yin and yang energy. Even an area lord expert couldn't compare to such a devouring ability. This didn't mean that Su Fang was stronger than an area lord expert. Instead, it was because Su Fang's world tree and the yin and yang energy in his world could directly fuse with the yin and yang energy in the outside world. Although the other area lords also cultivated the power of the world, they didn't cultivate the yin and yang energy in Su Fang's world. After absorbing the yin and yang energy in the outside world into their bodies, even area lords had to be 100 times more careful and fuse their own energy with the yin and yang energy. This was because the yin and yang energy was stronger than their own energy. The slightest carelessness would cause them to lose control of the yin and yang energy and cause their divine dwellings to collapse. Cultivating the world in my body is really advantageous. However, it still doesn't pose any threat to me. Chapter 22:07. In the first 6 layered heavens of Primordius Heavenly Palace, Su Fang's performance had caused Di Yuan to feel threatened. However, the first 6 tests were not about strength, but more about talent, luck, Dao heart, and so on. In Di Yuan's opinion, no matter how outstanding Su Fang was in other aspects, it was impossible for him to surpass him. That was because he was born as a supreme imperial people. Imperial people were born with the ability to control the heavenly Tao. No matter how heaven-defying the cultivators who ascended from the great world were, how could they compare to him? Reality was so cruel. Some people were born with some things. Some people worked hard, struggled, and fought for their whole lives, but they could not have them. This was the difference between people. Moreover, Di Yuan was not an ordinary disciple of the imperial people, but the most outstanding genius of the imperial people. Sooner or later, he would be a supreme existence who controlled the heavenly Tao of all worlds. How could he compare? At this moment, witnessing Su Fang's amazing devouring ability, Di Yuan still did not feel threatened. He only felt a little shocked. QL11, a domineering smile, appeared on Di Yuan's face. Although you are extraordinary, you are still beneath my feet. If you can submit to me in the future, as long as the 3 realms are not destroyed, I will let you have a place among the supreme powerhouses of the myriad of realms. Otherwise, about 10 days later, Su Fang suddenly stood up. Di Yuan raised his sword-like eyebrows. Could it be that he still wants to strive for greater heights and attempt to challenge this young master? He is overestimating himself. Whoosh! Su Fang's figure rose rapidly, and he instantly soared thousands of miles away with the momentum of a soaring dragon. Not only did he want to surpass Di Yuan, but the power of yin and yang below was also not enough to satisfy his cultivation. Another 15 days passed. Su Fang finished his cultivation and soared again. At this time, he was already close to Di Yuan. Is Su Fang trying to defy the heavens? Challenging Di Yuan? Is Su Fang qualified? This is a fierce battle. This is going to be interesting. Su Fang suddenly became the focus of everyone's attention. However, no one thought that he could surpass Di Yuan. Su Fang sat cross-legged in the air. After forming a seal, the world tree, the Yang Meridian, and the Tao Palace of heaven and earth trembled violently. The power of yin and yang in the outside world and the power of Su Fang formed a strange vibration, as if the two sides of the world were resonating with each other. The power of yin and yang swept over, whistling around the Su Fang. Strange halos appeared on the edges of the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon in the sky. They trembled and formed a strange resonance with the heavenly Tao. After a round of frenzied devouring, Su Fang felt that the world tree in Yang Meridian had reached saturation. His divine dwellings were also full. He only needed one more long period of seclusion to break through the peak of the 7th heavenly layer and advance to the next level. The 70th Yang Meridian was also about to be born. Di Yuan, since you dare use Xuanxin to threaten and humiliate me, then I'll trample you beneath my feet under the gazes of everyone present today. Su Fang's heart was filled with anger. He raised his head and let out a long howl. His voice was filled with a lofty aspiration to surpass the heavens and earth in an incomparable domineering aura. His figure soared into the sky. The closer he got to the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon, the more terrifying the pressure and shackles formed by the power of yin and yang became. Only domain lords dared to enter the range between 10,000 miles and 50,000 miles. However, even domain lords could only resist the shackles while carefully absorbing the power of yin and yang into their bodies and fusing it. Even region lords weren't able to fly without the slightest restraint like Su Fang. If the power of yin and yang released by the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon were compared to water, then Su Fang was like a fish swimming against the current. Although the current formed a great resistance to him, it could not drown the fish. However, it was different for others. Even those domain lords and overgods did not have the power of yin and yang. They were like swimming in a river or a lake, relying entirely on their own abilities. In a short span of a dozen breaths, Su Fang rose against the heavens and chased after Di Yuan. Although he had slowed down a lot, at this rate, catching up and even surpassing Di Yuan would be easy. The numerous geniuses below were all shocked. Only now did they realize the gap between them and Su Fang. This despicable ant can actually reach such heights. Looking up at Su Fang, Yu Luoyang's heart suffered a heavy blow again. He had no choice but to admit defeat. Waves of emotions surged in Yin Buji's heart. He completely dispelled the thought of taking revenge on Su Fang. Tian Bao, Chu Bingyan, and the other geniuses all sighed helplessly. Chu Bingyan said, being in the same era as Su Fang and entering the Yuan Tiangong heavenly realm Tao grounds at the same time is truly our misfortune. There were also geniuses who were burning with fighting spirit. We are inferior to him now, but it does not mean we will always be inferior to him. Assault Wind, only had one goal in the past, and that was to surpass Di Yuan. Now, I have another goal, Su Fang. You want to surpass this young master? How can I let you do as you wish? Di Yuan finally felt a great threat. With a snort, a supreme divine might that could control the heavenly Tao erupted. Not only was the surrounding yin and yang energy unable to form a shackle on him, but it was also controlled by him. The current Di Yuan was like a huge ship that was riding the wind and breaking the waves. The yin and yang energy released by the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon were also controlled by him, pushing him upwards. At this moment, he was the center of attention. Soon, Di Yuan arrived at a place close to 10,000 miles away from the two divine artifacts. If he continued to advance, that would be a height that only overgods could reach. Although Di Yuan could control the heavenly Tao, no matter how extraordinary he was, it was impossible for him to reach the height of an overgod. If he continued to advance, it would be like a huge ship in the river. Once it reached the sea, it would only be the ship that would be destroyed. Looking down at Su Fong and the numerous geniuses below, a sense of superiority spontaneously arose in Di Yuan's heart. In the past, Di Yuan had always been like this, looking down on everyone. However, it was different this time. This time, he could trample Su Fong under his feet. It was a completely different feeling from before. Who knew Su Fong's figure was still climbing upwards? Although it was more than 10 times slower than before, he was still calm and composed. Soon, he was on par with Di Yuan. Su Fong looked at Di Yuan and smiled. He curled his lips and said, "You said before that you would trample me under your feet? I didn't expect that the great Shao Zun of the imperial people would also boast." Di Yuan shouted domineeringly, "Arrogant! I, Di Yuan, am the imperial people Shao Zun, the #1 genius in the universe. From the day I was born, I was destined to be the ruler of the universe. I, Su Fong, am the exact opposite of you. I was born in a small world and was destined to be unable to cultivate. However, I don't believe in fate. I changed my fate step by step and walked from a small world to my current height. Along the way, countless experts try to trample me under their feet. In the end, not only did I live well, I even surpassed the peak time and time again. As for those who try to trample me under my feet, they were all trampled under my feet," Su Fong said slowly. In his calm tone, there was a hint of arrogance. "Changing your fate? Your fate is controlled by me and controlled by me. This is the will of the heavenly Tao. How can you change it? Today, I will let you know what it means to be unsurpassable and what it means to defy fate." Di Yuan snorted disdainfully. A ruler's aura erupted from his body. Mysterious heavenly marks condensed on his white robe, releasing a golden xinguang. One could vaguely see the sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, lightning, clouds, and other heavenly Tao phenomena. The white robe on his body was actually a half-creation divine artifact. It could increase Di Yuan's divine might by several times. Di Yuan's aura immediately changed drastically. His ability to control the heavenly Tao increased by several times. He was like a supreme ruler who controlled the universe. The surrounding yin and yang forces push him up under his control. Di Yuan crossed the limit of 10,000 miles and reached a height that only overgods could reach. Who knew? Su Fong stepped forward and broke through the shocking shackles. He also charged into the range of 10,000 miles. Cries of surprise could be heard from the crowd below. The emperors in the sky all looked over. Even the supreme existence of the imperial people looked at Su Fong and Di Yuan with surprise in his eyes. Di Yuan glanced at Su Fong and saw that his divine body was shattering. A series of earth-shattering sounds came from his body. It was a sign that his spiritual dwellings were about to collapse. Let's see how long you can last. You almost killed Ilu Woyang with your tricks. I'll give you a taste of your own medicine and drag you to death." Di Yuan was very domineering. With a boom, his body rose into the sky again. This Di Yuan is indeed not an ordinary genius. In terms of true strength, I'm not as good as him. Moreover, he has a supreme divine artifact. Su Fong was also very surprised. This was the foundation of the supreme imperial people. Any random divine artifact was a half-creation divine artifact. How could other geniuses compare to him? Su Fong. At this time, Emperor Sangqiu's voice sounded in his mind. "Sir Emperor, if you still have strength, do your best to show it. This time, not only is it a fortune, but it's also a test for other geniuses. Don't worry about exposing your strength. The stronger you show, the more attention you will receive. It will be more beneficial for you to enter the Yuan Tiangong." As expected of a venerable emperor, Emperor Sangqiu could see that Su Fong was still hiding something at a glance. "Thank you for your reminder, Sir Emperor." Su Fong no longer had any scruples. He activated the purple Qi Dharma spirit and displayed the divine power to control the heavenly Tao. His figure rose into the sky. The moment Su Fong activated the purple Qi Dharma spirit, the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon in the sky trembled violently. The power of yin and yang that was released was no longer as violent as before around Su Fong. Instead, it became docile. Although the divine power of the purple Qi Dharma spirit could not control the two divine artifacts, it weakened the shackles formed by the divine power of the two divine artifacts on Su Fong. In addition, Su Fong's world yin and yang energy made the surrounding yin and yang energy extremely compatible with Su Fong. Boom, boom, boom. Su Fong flew up like the wind, rapidly closing the distance between him and Di Yuan. Soon, they were neck to neck, and then quickly overtook him. Di Yuan, it looks like you're going to lose this time. Su Fong looked back at Di Yuan, his tone full of ridicule. Di Yuan's eyes suddenly became sharp. For the first time, he realized that it was very likely that he would be overtaken by Su Fong. I am Di Yuan, the Di Yuan that no one can surpass. Chapter 2208. Ordained by the heavens, I wield the heavens. Heaven-wielding seal. Di Yuan used his self-created divine ability. At this moment, he was like a supreme existence that controlled the heavenly Tao. Di Yuan was born in the imperial people. The divine ability he mastered was much more powerful than his self-created heaven-wielding seal. The same great Tao could be cultivated and comprehended differently by different people. It was even more difficult for Di Yuan to integrate the imperial people's divine ability into his own great Tao with his own understanding of the heavenly Tao. In addition to his current cultivation, it was very difficult for him to use the full power of the divine ability. The self-created divine ability was the interpretation of his understanding of the heavenly Tao. When he used it personally, it could unleash even more powerful power. After using the heaven-wielding seal, the surrounding yin and yang energy was controlled by him, helping his ascension speed to be more than 10 times faster. In an instant, Di Yuan climbed another 10,000 miles. At this time, he was less than 30,000 miles away from the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyang divine moon, leaving Su Fong far behind. Crack, crack, crack. The mysterious heavenly marks on Di Yuan's robe began to collapse. All kinds of strange phenomena were also constantly shattering. Di Yuan knew that he had reached his limit here. If he continued to move forward, not only would he be humiliated in public, but he might even be injured. This is my limit. I'll use it to break through to the peak of the divine venerable realm, merge with the heavenly Tao, and advance to a higher realm. Everyone thinks that the supreme existence of my race can obtain supreme fortune by activating the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyang divine moon. How would they know that this fortune is actually prepared for me, Di Yuan, to merge with the heavenly Tao? Di Yuan sat down cross-legged on the ground and began to concentrate on absorbing the yin and yang energy. As for Su Fong, he no longer cared about him. A genius that was under his feet was not worth his attention. Heaven and earth as a tool. I control heaven and earth. Purple Qi Dharma spirit. Su Fong pushed the purple Qi Dharma spirit to the extreme. Mysterious purple Qi lingered around him. A purple Qi canopy condensed on top of his head. A mysterious and powerful divine power that could control heaven and earth as if the universe was a treasure shrouded all directions. Boom, boom, boom. Su Fong stepped in the air, crossing 1,000 miles with each step. In less than 10 breaths, he was once again on par with Di Yuan. A low-level existence in the great world actually has the heavenly Tao power similar to the supreme imperial people. This is impossible. When Di Yuan sensed the commotion caused by the Su Fong, he suddenly opened his eyes and revealed an expression of disbelief. Then, a resolute expression flashed in his eyes. He immediately stopped his cultivation and prepared to charge upwards once more. At this moment, a majestic voice rang out in his mind. Di Yuan, your Tao heart is in chaos. Even though his voice wasn't loud, it was like a thunderclap that caused Di Yuan to be instantly jolted awake, and it was as if he'd been hit in the head. Cultivators pursued solipsism, the true self. Being influenced by external objects was equivalent to being indirectly controlled by others. Su Fong closed in step by step. Di Yuan had no choice but to overtake him time and time again. Imperceptibly, his every move was already grasped by Su Fong. Di Yuan looked at Su Fong, and coldness seeped out of his deep eyes. "You're the first person who can mess with my Tao heart. Only by suppressing you can I stabilize my Tao heart. Once I succeed in my advancement, I'll definitely trample you beneath my feet and never let you rise again." The Emperor Realm Masters were also surprised by the purple cloud magic spirit's astonishing power. It's actually the great pregnant purple cloud. Is Su Fong also an artifact refiner? Otherwise, how could he turn the great pregnant purple cloud from the birth of thousands of magic treasures into such an amazing treasure? No wonder Su Fong could rise so quickly. It turns out that he has a treasure that brings him supreme luck. When he entered the palace to test his luck, it's no wonder he surpassed Di Yuan. Only then did the Emperor Realm Masters carefully examine Su Fong, and they discovered the extraordinariness of the purple cloud magic spirit. Even the Emperor Realm Masters were amazed by this treasure that could bring about supreme fortune. However, none of the Emperor Realm Masters coveted Su Fong's purple cloud magic spirit. What Emperor Realm Masters pursued was not the peak of the heavenly way, but to surpass the peak of the heavenly way and transcend heaven and earth. No treasure in this world could tempt them. Although the purple cloud magic spirit was a unique treasure in the eyes of these Emperor Realm Masters, it currently belonged to a junior. If they forcibly seized it, it would cause flaws to appear in their Tao heart. When one reached the level of an Emperor Realm Master, a flaw in their Tao heart could sever their path to transcendence. Although the Emperor Realm Masters were not tempted, it did not mean that others were not tempted. In the distant void, a middle-aged man in a black Taoist robe was staring at Su Fong from hundreds of thousands of miles away. This middle-aged man had a head of withered hair and an aged face that looked like it belonged to the living dead. However, as the light in his eyes flickered, terrifying flames surged, as if they contained the flames of calamity that could destroy the world. This man was Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Just as Su Fong displayed the supreme divine power of the purple cloud magic spirit, a mysterious purple cloud emanated from Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's black Taoist robe, making his appearance even stranger. I cultivate the Heavenly Fire Great Path and need to constantly absorb the power of tribulation fire. With the purple cloud magic spirit, I can resolve the power of tribulation fire. The purple cloud magic spirit is an extraordinary treasure. How can it fall into the hands of a lowly existence? Su Fong, since you let the heavenly treasure escape my control, I will take your purple cloud magic spirit and complete my supreme Heavenly Fire Great Path. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord snorted coldly and closed his eyes to continue absorbing the power of Yin and Yang. Wang, the mysterious runes of a life-shrinking technique in Su Fong's mind flickered and condensed into the phantom of Heavenly Fire Divine Lord. Now that I've displayed the purple cloud magic spirit, Emperor Realm Masters will not forcibly seize it. I never expected it to attract Heavenly Fire Divine Lord's attention. Heavenly Fire Divine Lord, I'm afraid you won't come looking for me. Su Fong snorted domineeringly and sat down cross-legged. He struggled to stabilize his body and began absorbing the power of Yin and Yang to cultivate the world tree and Yang meridian. The power of Yin and Yang here was purer and more majestic. After Su Fong absorbed it without restraint, not only the world tree, but the entire heaven and earth Tao palace felt like it was going to explode at any moment. His divine abode also felt like it was filled with floodwaters that would erupt at any moment. Strange, what's going on? Could it be that I've absorbed too much Yin and Yang energy, resulting in a mistake in my cultivation? Su Fong could not help but worry. He immediately released his Yang energy and went into the primordial chaos sacred mirror. Moments later, Shu Wanjin's weak voice swept over along with the frigid air. Su Fang, what's the matter? Not only have you condensed another Yang meridian, but you are also about to reach the realm of heavenly Tao convergence. Heavenly Tao convergence. Upon hearing these words, Su Fang's heart jolted. He instantly had a profound insight, but when he tried to grasp it carefully, he failed to grasp it. In the past, your realm was insufficient. If I told you in advance, it would have disturbed your Tao heart. Now that you are about to step into this realm, Senior Sister will explain to you what heavenly Tao convergence is. Shu Wanjin spoke tirelessly. Gods at the divine emperor realm constantly comprehend the great Tao nomological laws at this realm. Gods at the divine venerable realm comprehend the essence of the great Tao. Experts who have surpassed the divine venerable realm merge themselves with the heavenly Tao and use the heavenly Tao as the foundation to create and derive their own nomological laws. This is the legendary heavenly Tao convergence. Only by reaching the heavenly Tao convergence realm can one surpass the divine venerable realm and reach a new realm, which is the realm that divine lords, heavenly lords, and domain lords are at. It is called the Tao convergence realm. After reaching the heavenly Tao convergence realm, one's ability to control the world will multiply, surpassing the great realm lord of a great realm. One will be able to dominate a star zone, which is why it is also called the divine domain realm. Su Fang asked, the Ji people's expert I killed before, Ji Feng, should be a Tao convergence realm expert. A Tao convergence realm god doesn't seem to be that powerful. Not that powerful. Shu Wanjin's voice was full of pressure and reprimand. If it wasn't for the primordial chaos sacred mirror, and if it wasn't activated by the two of us, Ji Feng could have easily crushed you. Su Fang smiled sheepishly. That's true. Shu Wanjin continued. Reaching the heavenly Tao convergence realm is actually projecting the power of the divine abode or the small world in one's body into heaven and earth, merging with heaven and earth to form a world and becoming the supreme ruler of that world. Su Fang said, it seems to be similar to a domain. It is somewhat similar, but after a divine domain realm expert reaches the heavenly Tao convergence realm, what is formed is not a void space, but a world. Merging oneself with the heavenly Tao convergence realm is not something a domain can compare to. At the level of a domain lord, one can even turn nothingness into reality and create a material world. Moreover, a divine domain realm expert also possesses a supreme ability, which is the heavenly law embodiment technique. Su Fang said, I've heard of the heavenly law embodiment technique before. It is to imitate the heavenly Tao convergence realm, materializing one's cultivation and laws, creating things out of thin air, forming a heavenly law embodiment, and combining it with the Yang spirit to display a supreme ability. That's right. The heavenly law embodiment, formed by every Tao convergence realm expert, is related to the great Tao they cultivate. As for the ability and power of the heavenly law embodiment, it depends on the laws they create. What will my heavenly law embodiment be? You cultivate the supreme heavenly Tao and have cultivated a small world in your body, so your embodiment will naturally be different. I can roughly guess what it is, but I can't tell you in advance, otherwise it will form a pattern in your heart, and that will be harming you. I see. Shu Wanjin then carefully warned, your main energy space is the heaven and earth Tao palace, which is also the world in your body. Breaking through to the divine venerable realm and merging with the heavenly Tao is more than 100 times more difficult than other gods. Moreover, your cultivation has not reached the peak of the divine venerable realm, but there are signs of Tao convergence. This is a good thing, as it proves that your comprehension of the great Tao is far beyond your cultivation. However, it is also a bad thing, as if your cultivation can't keep up, the probability of failing Tao convergence will be much higher. Therefore, you must be careful. Once you fail Tao convergence, what awaits you is death. It's that serious? Su Fangdao was shocked, and a chill ran down his spine. Chapter 2209. You need a master to guide you in your cultivation. I can still give you a few pointers now, but I won't be able to after you reach the Tao unification stage. I didn't expect that the little brat from the small world would grow so quickly. Shu Wanjin sighed emotionally. Su Fong was speechless. He was a high-level ultimate god, yet he was called a little brat. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, in front of Shu Wanjin, Su Fong was indeed a little brat. When you reach the Tao unification stage, you have to pay attention to the following extremes. There are two energy spaces in your body. When you reach the Tao unification stage, you have to integrate your physical body, divine dwelling, and yang spirit with your inner world. Only then can you reach the heavenly Tao. When you reach the Tao unification stage, although there is no divine tribulation, there will be all kinds of illusions and inner demons. Your Tao heart must be as strong as iron, and you must believe in your Tao. Otherwise, it will cause your Tao to be unstable, and you will fail. In addition, you need to prepare enough pills and spiritual items in advance to prevent your efforts from going to waste when you reach the Tao unification stage due to insufficient energy. Then, Shu Wanjin carefully reminded him of some things that he needed to pay attention to before leaving the mirror space with the cold air. Su Fong began to focus on cultivation. He did not have any other good ideas, so he could only use the world tree to absorb the yin and yang energy from the outside world and use the 9 yang 9 changes. The pure yang energy in his body circulated wildly and swept through every corner of his body with the power of heavenly cycle reincarnation. The Origin Saint realm also released cold air, forming a yin and yang dual cultivation. After that, the absorbed yin and yang energy were all merged, forming a vast aura that surged in Su Fong's body. As for how to reach the heavenly Tao, he could only go with the flow and could not force it. After all, he had not reached the peak of the 9th heaven of the ultimate God realm. About 10 days later, Su Fong's body gradually burned with a layer of flames. It was the tribulation fire. He did not expect to reach the 8th heaven of the ultimate God realm so soon. With a burst of sizzling sounds, the tribulation chi and tribulation fire instantly enveloped Su Fong. Immediately, his divine body trembled as the tribulation fire burned with surging momentum. However, there were not many impurities seeping out of his skin. It was because the yin and yang energy formed by the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon was a kind of creation energy that had the effect to cleanse the marrow. Being able to advance to the next level this time can be considered a stroke of good fortune. Su Fong was very happy in his heart, but there was a painful expression on his face. This time, the advancement did not take a long time. In just half a month, the power of advancement began to spread throughout his body. Another brand of the heavenly Tao was formed in his divine aperture, divine dwelling, and physical body. 8th heaven ultimate God. This advancement had caused Su Fong to lose a lot of his aura, and his body became empty again. At this moment, the world was filled with an astonishing amount of yin and yang energy. There was no need for him to consume any pills at all. He could just absorb the yin and yang energy and recover rapidly. While Su Fong was ascending, Di Yuan opened his eyes and glanced at him. The corners of his mouth curled up in a disdainful smile. This time, he really got lucky and obtained a good fortune, successfully ascending a level. But compared to my fortune, it's not even worth mentioning. Another 3 months passed. This time, the supreme existence of the imperial people activated the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon. In addition to creating a star zone in the periphery of the Yuan Tiangong for gods to live in, there was another important purpose: to help Di Yuan reach Tao integration. At this time, Di Yuan had not yet begun to break through to the Tao integration realm. Naturally, the powerful being in white from the imperial people would not continue to activate the 2 divine artifacts to release the divine power of heaven and earth. During this period, some of the Yuan Tiangong geniuses also obtained amazing fortunes, and there were people who were constantly ascending. The powerful beings who came from various places in the distance also obtained great fortunes. However, compared to the Yuan Tiangong geniuses, they were still incomparable. Cultivating in the periphery was definitely not as effective as cultivating directly above the entrance of the Yuan Tiangong. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Su Fong sensed a commotion erupting in the heaven and earth Tao Palace. It was not the Yang Meridian, but the World Tree. QL11, he saw that the World Tree had already stopped growing. It looked to be about 10,000 feet tall, but it felt like it was going straight into the endless sky. Its branches and leaves were lush and majestic. The leaves emitted xian guang of different colors, and the heavenly Tao flower at the top of the tree also emitted rays of multicolored light. They intertwined and transformed into endless natural phenomena of heaven and earth. This is probably the final appearance of the World Tree. Su Fong guessed. His World Tree had grown from a fragment of the world by chance. It was unique in heaven and earth. He wanted to learn from the cultivation experience of the powerful beings, but he had no way to do so. He could only explore on his own. Suddenly, the Yang Qi in the Yang Meridian surged wildly toward the World Tree. Then, it was his physical body, life, blood, and various physiques, as well as the divine essence, primordial spirit, and dermic powers in his spiritual abode. All of these energies rushed toward the World Tree. The World Tree did not change much, but the heavenly Tao flower at the top of the tree withered rapidly, as if it was being absorbed by the World Tree. However, buds quickly formed on the branches. The World Tree and the Yang Meridian formed the Tao Palace of heaven and earth. It seemed like it was going to burst the restraints of his physical body and merge with heaven and earth. In just 5 breaths, Su Fong felt that his entire body had been sucked dry. He was so frightened that his heart trembled. From the outside, Su Fong's body was shriveled and his aura was weak. He was like a living corpse. The yin and yang energy absorbed from the outside world could not satisfy the World Tree. He quickly grabbed a handful of pills. They were all creation's sacred pills that the Yin clan had used as an apology. There were more than a dozen of them, and he swallowed them without hesitation. As soon as the creation's sacred pill melted, its medicinal power was quickly sucked into the World Tree along with the yin and yang energy from the outside world. Only then did the World Tree stabilize, and Su Fong finally breathed a sigh of relief. My World Tree and the Yang Meridian not only form a universe in my body, but also a bridge to communicate and control the outside world. Now that it's suddenly changed, it's obvious that it's about to reach the heavenly Tao realm. No wonder Senior Sister reminded me to prepare enough pills and spiritual items. I didn't expect the consumption to be so shocking before I even started the Tao unification. It seems that my cultivation is still not enough. I have a lot of pills and spiritual items, but how can they compare to the yin and yang energy? Su Fong looked up at the sky and stared at the 2 divine artifacts. His eyes flashed with decisiveness and determination. Since the yin and yang energy was not high enough at his current height, then he would continue to go up and devour purer and higher level yin and yang energy. Su Fong had only reached his current height with the help of the purple Qi Dharma spirit. How could it be easy to continue climbing? Right now, the Shaoyang Divine Sun and Shaoyin Divine Moon are in the sky. This is a rare opportunity. If I miss it now, I don't know when I'll be able to reach the Tao unification. Therefore, I can't miss this opportunity. Cultivation is to surpass one peak after another. Although I don't have the superior conditions of those ancient divine clans and super powerful geniuses, I have the heart of a cultivator. Su Fong continued to devour more than a dozen creation divine pills. After he had almost recovered, he stood up slowly against the force of the shackles and displayed the Kai Tian seal. The mysterious natural chaotic energy circulated in a strange pattern between his hands, and a terrifying divine might that seemed capable of collapsing the heavens, and the earth erupted with a bang, forcefully tearing open a passageway through the shackles and pressure. Su Fong's figure exploded. A heaven-defying aura erupted like a divine dragon rising to the sky. Before the shackles and pressure formed by the yin and yang energy converged again, he rose more than 10,000 miles in one breath. Di Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. The eyes under his sword-like eyebrows flashed with intense shock and jealousy that could not be suppressed no matter how hard he tried. Huff Di Yuan controlled his breathing and forced his heart to calm down. However, at this moment, the legend that he thought was unsurpassable was shattered by Su Fong in one fell swoop. His Tao heart was already in chaos, leaving behind a crack. The many geniuses below, as well as the many powerhouses in the distance, were once again shocked by Su Fong's actions. Waves of exclamations rose one after another. Xuanxin, our man is really extraordinary. Goddess Luo pursed her lips and smiled. A sense of pride spontaneously rose within her. Xuanxin smiled. In an instant, he melted like an iceberg. You don't need to remind me of this. I already knew this when I was in the outside world. The venerable sovereigns in the sky also focused their attention on Su Fong. All of them were moved. The venerable sovereigns of the Yi clan snorted. This kid is playing to the gallery. He's deliberately shaking Di Yuan's Tao heart. His intentions are worthy of death. The Sanskrit venerable sovereigns took advantage of the situation and said, "This kid has no respect for his seniors. He's not worth cultivating in the Yuan Tiangong." As the two of them spoke, the sound of thunder immediately rumbled beside them. It transformed into a supreme will that was about to descend upon Su Fong. This was the supreme divine ability of venerable sovereigns. When they opened their mouths, it was as if the heavenly Tao was punishing them. The venerable sovereigns of Sangxiu waved his long sleeves, and the divine power of Emperor Yi Fan Di immediately dissipated. He said coldly, "Why don't I see Il Woyang playing to the gallery?" Fan Shu wanted to play to the gallery, but in the end, she lost her life for nothing. Two venerable sovereigns are targeting a junior. Aren't you afraid that this will shake your Tao heart? Sangxiu, are you planning to become enemies with this emperor for a junior? Fandi said gloomily. The sound of thunder in the surroundings suddenly became louder. Enough, the imperial people's white-clothed expert said indifferently. His voice contained the will of the heavenly Tao, and Fandi's aura instantly disappeared. The geniuses below, not only Di Yuan, but each of them may be related to the survival of the universe. Do you understand what this emperor means? The voice of the imperial people's white-clothed expert made all the venerable sovereigns feel a supreme pressure and an irresistible will. Their hearts trembled. The height that Su Fong had reached at this time was almost the limit that a domain lord could reach. It was far beyond what he could bear. However, the power of yin and yang here was more than 10 times more abundant and pure than where he was before. As soon as he stopped, he immediately activated the ancestral dragon armor and quickly formed a seal. He used the great yin seal to wildly sweep the power of yin and yang around him. The world tree trembled again, but it didn't grow. The flower buds on the branches quickly grew bigger and bloomed into flowers of different colors. Chapter 22:10. About 3 months later, the imperial people's white-robed powerhouse in the sky suddenly opened his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up as he smiled slightly. The prodigy of my clan is finally about to converge. The other venerable sovereigns also projected their sensing power, paying attention to Di Yuan. A force of nothingness erupted from Di Yuan's body, shooting straight into the sky and disappearing into the depths of the firmament. He was clearly sitting there, but his entire person seemed to have disappeared from the world. Apart from the venerable sovereigns, even some over-god powerhouses could not sense his existence. In the next moment, thunder rumbled in the sky. A solemn and sacred aura instantly enveloped the world. The firmament seemed to be torn apart layer by a sharp sword. The heavenly Tao also seemed to be stripped of its mysterious veil at this moment. The shadow of a mountain peak emerged from the depths of the firmament. It was not the full appearance of the mountain peak. It was only a corner of the mountain peak, but it made everyone feel the majesty, and endless mysteries of this mountain. At this moment, in front of this corner of the mountain peak, everyone felt an endless pressure. It was as if their bodies had changed owners, and they could not help but kneel down and worship. It was not just the deities. It felt as if the world was about to submit to this mountain. People tried hard to remember this mountain, but they were shocked to find that they could not remember anything at all. It was as if there was a force in the unseen world that was erasing people's memories, making it impossible for them to remember the mountain's appearance. The celestial worthy mountain. This is the legendary celestial worthy mountain. Su Fong also stopped cultivating, and his heart was filled with incomparable shock. This was only a corner of the mountain. How magnificent was the entire mountain! The golden rainbow monarch spoke from the depths of his body. That's right. This is the core of the universe, the celestial worthy mountain. The chaotic, divine tribulation of the deities comes from the celestial worthy mountain. The so-called convergence with the heavenly Tao is actually to obtain the recognition of the celestial worthy mountain, and to use one's own Tao to resonate with the celestial worthy mountain and send down a projection. Every deity who converges will have such a phenomenon? Of course not. Compared to the number of deities, Tao convergence powerhouses in the universe are as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. However, they're not as rare as venerable sovereigns. If every deity who converges will cause such a phenomenon, the celestial worthy mountain would not be so mysterious. Su Fong understood. It seems that it has something to do with Di Yuan's cultivation method. In addition to his cultivation method, there is also his bloodline. The monarch race wields the power of the heavenly Tao, which is to say, they're the representatives of the heavenly Tao in the myriad worlds, and the exalted celestial mountain is the manifestation of the supreme heavenly Tao. When the monarch race powerhouses merge with the Tao, the commotion will definitely be different. His future achievements. He's very likely to become a venerable sovereign powerhouse. Although it's only a corner, it's Tao convergence. Although the Tao convergences is celestial worthy, too. As Su Fong and the Golden Rainbow King were conversing, the celestial exalted mountain high in the sky trembled. The entire world seemed to tremble. Di Yuan's body exuded the power of nothingness, shooting up into the sky. There was a mysterious divine might that resonated with the exalted celestial mountain. Boom! Di Yuan's body trembled, and a majestic aura surged out of his body, sweeping through the void for 1,000 miles. Then, the aura rapidly shrank and condensed above Di Yuan's head, turning into a statue the size of a normal person. This was the statue of an old man. It emanated an ancient aura and boundless dignity. It emanated the aura of a supreme overlord. It was as if he controlled all the laws of the world, and all things had to submit to him. The old man's statue suddenly opened its eyes. When they sensed his gaze, even some ordinary region lords couldn't help but tremble, and they intended to kneel down and submit. The energy of yin and yang in the surroundings surged and shook. Then, the old man's statue disappeared into the top of Di Yuan's head. Di Yuan closed his eyes and began to further comprehend and consolidate his cultivation. Congratulations to the imperial people for the birth of another expert. He was able to make the exalted celestial mountain reveal its true form during the unification. Di Yuan will at least be a venerable sovereign in the future. He might even surpass us. He will definitely surpass me. Back when I was unification, the exalted celestial mountain only revealed a blurry shadow, but Di Yuan revealed his true form. There's no comparison. The world is changing, and a catastrophe is imminent. However, with a peerless genius like Di Yuan, the myriad worlds will surely be able to resolve this crisis. The imperial people first had Di Xuan, and now they have Di Yuan. As expected, the number one god clan in the myriad worlds. Many venerable sovereigns congratulated the imperial people's white-robed expert. In front of the powerful imperial people, these venerable sovereigns were no different from ordinary people. They took the opportunity to flatter and curry favor with the white-robed expert. The white-robed expert was unperturbed, and he laughed it off. One of the venerable sovereigns said, "Since Di Yuan has succeeded in unification, the next step should be for all the venerable sovereigns to join forces and use the supreme great Tao. using the Shaoyang divine sun and Shaoyin divine moon to rebuild the world. The white-robed expert said, "Let's wait a little longer." The other venerable sovereigns thought that the imperial people's peerless existence wanted to wait for Di Yuan to stabilize his realm, so they kept quiet. Di Yuan has already reached unification. The gap between me and Di Yuan is too big. There's no way I can catch up to him. No one could surpass Di Yuan. Di Yuan was able to reach this step because he was born in the imperial people. Although I'm born lowly and can't compare to Di Yuan, I will never give up. The many geniuses below exclaimed as they witnessed the scene of Di Yuan's unification. Many of these geniuses had the powerful strength to defeat Tao integration experts. There were even some peerless geniuses who could defeat mid-stage Tao integration experts equivalent to heavenly lords with the help of divine abilities and artifacts. However, reaching unification meant that one could be ranked among the strongest in the myriad worlds. Moreover, it was extremely difficult to achieve unification. Among the 10,000 Yuan Tiangong geniuses, less than a third of them could succeed in unification. In the myriad worlds, only 1 out of 100,000 venerable sovereigns would succeed in unification. Therefore, unification was a huge watershed in the path of cultivation. At this moment, Di Yuan had easily integrated the Tao, and all the prodigies felt even more powerless. Comparing oneself to another could sometimes infuriate oneself to death. Being born from a monarch race was Di Yuan's supreme fortune. So how could they compare? However, everyone's performance was different. Some were discouraged, while others were motivated by Di Yuan. About 3 years passed. With the help of the power of yin and yang, Di Yuan quickly stabilized his realm. However, this only meant that he had 1 foot in the Tao integration realm. He still needed to pass the divine tribulation and cleanse his marrow with the power of the heavenly tribulation. Only then could he be considered to have truly stepped into the Tao integration realm. Di Yuan stood up and glanced at the many geniuses below with a disdainful spirit in his eyes. Finally, Di Yuan's gaze fell on Su Fong in the sky, and his gaze suddenly became fierce. Who is qualified to be above me? Di Yuan's figure swayed, and he instantly covered a distance of 1,000 miles. The power of yin and yang that previously formed a huge shackle and pressure on Di Yuan could no longer pose much of an obstacle to him, who had merged with the heavenly Tao. Suddenly, an invisible force shot out from Su Fong's body and into the 9 heavens. It turned into a distorted aura that shot upward like a shooting star. Rumble, 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 rumble. The sky darkened in an instant, as if someone had pulled a thick curtain to cover the sky. The divine sun and the 6 evil suns in the sky were covered. The 2 divine weapons, the Shaoyang divine sun and the Shaoyin divine moon, also dimmed in an instant. Di Yuan felt an invisible divine power of the heavenly Tao shrouding heaven and earth. It was as if there was an invisible existence in the unseen world that suddenly opened its eyes. After his unification, his ability to communicate and control the heavenly Tao was far better than before. However, under the divine power of the heavenly Tao, he could not move at all. He had completely lost the ability to control the heavenly Tao. The geniuses below and the gods in the distance were all shocked. Their faces were filled with shock and awe, and their bodies were trembling. The venerable sovereigns in the sky also looked up at the sky in shock. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The will of the heavenly master has awakened at this moment. The white-robed expert of the imperial people stared at Su Fong. His deep eyes flashed with surprise, and a trace of doubt. In the sky, it was as if layers of fog had been lifted, revealing a huge face. This face looked very young, but it was filled with endless vicissitudes and supreme majesty. The moment this face appeared, heaven and earth became still, and the heavenly Tao stopped operating. The young face's eyes, which were originally closed, slowly opened a slit. There was a faint flicker of light in his pupils. In an instant, the gods below took a look, including the venerable sovereigns and suddenly there was a roar in their minds. The creation of heaven and earth, the movement of the stars, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning, the vicissitudes of the sun and moon, and other celestial phenomena flashed in their minds. The young face's lips moved. Thunder rumbled in everyone's minds, but no one could hear what he said. My Tao is immortal. However, Su Fong could clearly hear a voice that had experienced the vicissitudes of life, ringing in his mind. My Tao is immortal? What does this mean? Su Fong was puzzled. He tried to comprehend it carefully. The shadow of a young man appeared in his mind, and some illusions kept flashing. Unexpectedly, the words "my Tao is immortal" quickly faded from his memory at this moment. Su Fong immediately activated the heavenly secret life shrinking technique and displayed the divine power of destiny that could seize the creation of heaven and earth. He firmly engraved these words in his mind, and he would look at them carefully when he had the time. At this moment, the face in the sky quickly became blurry and was covered by the fog again. The divine power of the heavenly Tao that shrouded heaven and earth also dissipated. All of the strange phenomena vanished without a trace. Su Fong also lost his connection with the heavenly Tao. His heart sank. Did the unification fail? The white-robed expert of the imperial people in the sky raised his eyebrows. To be able to awaken the will of the heavenly master is as heaven-defying as it is. How could the unification fail?